all for coming tonight. Remember that individuals may address the board on agenda items on both closed session and regular session agenda during public participation and/or at the time they are under consideration by completing the pink form that's over on the table and submitting it to Anna. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. Speakers will be chosen in random order. Each person may only speak once per agenda topic and is required to address the board from the podium to ensure that the public can hear on TV. And the public comment cannot be acted upon or discussed by the board unless it's placed on the agenda at a subsequent meeting in accordance with the Brown Act. And the board may request staff to respond orally at the meeting or in writing in future. And a total of 20 minutes will be spent on each topic. Remember that we are broadcast and videoed on the FBUSD YouTube channel, and please silence your phones and make sure that we're all adjusting the mic so that everyone can hear here and at home. Okay. So do we have any public, there was no action in closed session. And do we have any public participation on non-agenda items? Seeing none. We're going to move to the approval of the agenda, but I would first like to introduce our student rep that's with us this evening. So we have Angel Sanders here from Student Council. What is your position at?
I'm freshman class president.
Okay, well, welcome. So what we'll do is we need to add you to our agenda because unfortunately the student rep got taken off because we didn't have one, but now you guys will be back on. So if I can do the approval of the agenda with adding, or I suggest anyway, someone else can make the motion, to approve 8.1.2, which is normally where she would fall, adding our student rep to the agenda. And do we have anything else that needs to be moved or pulled or? No? Okay. All right, so
So I move to approve the agenda with the added 8.12 student report.
So in a few areas, we'll add you to the report section and you can give us your report. Okay? So thank you for joining us. And a second, please.
Can we add things to the agenda? I didn't think we could add, can move them around. I didn't know we could add things at a meeting to an agenda that's already been posted.
Can we add a report? Can I give her some of my time on the superintendent report?
Sorry.
I don't know. I
okay.
didn't know, I've never added anything to an agenda, so that's what's.
Well, it wasn't okay.
We've moved them
Oh,
around.
this is when it gets good, folks.
Yes.
Can I defer some of my superintendent report on the school dashboard?
Okay, so let's go back and have her do.
She could do public participation
Yes, we're
on
gonna go
non-agenda
on
items.
non-agenda items. So we're gonna back up. Thank you, Jerry.
Always find
Sorry,
a solution.
nothing, trying to follow the rules, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
so thank you very much. I apologize for the error. So we're gonna go ahead and go back to 3.3, public participation on non-agenda items. So Angel, we'll ask you to, if we're gonna be official, I guess, go to the podium and introduce yourself and then give us your report from the school. Is that okay? What?
What?
It's not on the, yeah, it is.
Isn't everybody?
You know what you can do? You can add her into the board report.
That's what I was thinking, just put her in 8.1.
Well, I put her,
I should
okay.
have just emailed you today, because I was like, I should email.
We really do know what we're doing. We're
Okay.
Right, so when you do your board report. Yeah, that's what,
Okay, we're just not gonna add an official
Sit back
number.
down? No.
Angel,
'Cause
we're gonna
that's
make
where
sure
I-
you get all your steps in, so maybe go to the front door, back.
You sure you
We'll
want this
figure
job?
this out. Okay,
So I move to approve the agenda as written.
thank you.
Second,
Okay, patriotic exercise, all those in favor?
yes.
Yes.
I'm all rattled. Okay. Patriotic exercise, I apologize. I had a singer lined up and she got a little stage fright, so she is not coming this evening. So we will just do the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
right, so acknowledgements. Becky leads us in this section.
Okay. Acknowledgements. I'm trying to open up my board folder. Okay. Sorry. Just a lovely day here in Fort Bragg. Acknowledgements.
5.
There we go, sorry. This month is School Board Appreciation Month, so thank you to our 5 board members. Ms. Mackle is recovering right now, so she had a bit of a fall, and she said it was okay that I say that. So that's why she's not here today, but we really would like to acknowledge our school board members who volunteer their time and their energy to help be the checks and balances of our school system, and really you all work together to make sure that we're fiscally solvent, that we are doing what we're supposed to do, that we are following our board policies. So I just want to publicly thank all of you for your service and all that you do for the kids in our community, so thank you. So happy School Board Appreciation Month. Next, the Mendocino County Office of Education Young Authors Fair. We received a grant award of $800 to be used towards Dana Gray Elementary School for the Young Authors Fair. So that was completely appreciated and very welcome. So thank you to Mendocino County Office of Ed.
Okay, communication. Did anybody receive any communication?
No.
I just wanted to, a response to a communication is that we extended an invitation to our county board member that is, what's the word? Not responsible, but assigned to our school district. We've extended an invitation for her to come join us at a meeting. So she has accepted, and hopefully we will see her soon. And then I wanted to also thank Becky for the blog. We get that pushed out to us every week, and it's nice that everything's in one spot, and you can always go back and look at it. So thank you for that communication to us as well as the staff in the district. So public participation on agenda items. Is there anybody that would like to speak to us now? Okay. Moving on to reports. So we start with the board report. We're hoping that we do some fun shout outs during our time.
Wanna start, Scott?
Nothing to report.
I attended Dana Gray Parents Club meeting on Tuesday. Got a lot going on, and basketball's going everywhere in the next room, and some good participation. Seems like they're doing well, so kind of getting up and running. But that's about it.
So Kathy and I were at the board chat, but it ends up being about board bonding because no one showed up. So it's not a total loss of time. And then I attended the wellness meeting this afternoon, and they've got some new ideas, which will be fun to add to the tennis shoe Tuesday. And then I also reached out to Miss Erickson at Redwood, and she reported that the Wild Things Assembly occurred on Tuesday, and thanks to the Parents Club, and Coffee with the Principal is happening the last Friday of the month, the 31st. And the teachers are continuing receiving guided reading support and training from the instructional coaches, Angie Daniels and Sarah McGee, and also with coordination with the Mendocino Office of Education. So they are keeping busy over there at Redwood.
And I'll wait till Angel gives hers, because I got a couple things from the high school, but you may have them in your report, so.
We just finished up advisory workshops last year, and we had ugly sweater days, and the Link Crew leaders hosted cookies and crayons, and we did finals, and we're just starting up spring sports. And we're starting up hoopla too on the 27th. That's all.
And that kicks off with activities and dress-up days. That's what Mr. Triplett told me about that. And then also that same week, the 28th, is Student of the Month. And you're adding athletes this time. So that'll be a nice thing. So if anybody's free to be on campus on the 28th, I'm sure it'll be in the bulletin if you want to pop in. Okay. Anything? Yeah.
The hoopla, is that the dress up?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's to, come together back after, winter sports.
Anything else? Okay.
Yes.
The date for Student of the Month might change to the Monday because Monday we'll also be having a kickoff rally for Hoopla. So we might be putting those two rallies together and including the Student of the Month with the Hoopla kickoff rally. So I'll make that announcement and change it on the website, on the calendar, and maybe I'll shoot an email off to Becky that can communicate with all of you.
Jamie Alexander, assistant
Jamie
principal.
Alexander, Assistant Principal, High School.
And I almost says Jamie Antrobus. Isn't that funny? That's what happens when you grow up, when you grow up in a small town.
And should we mention the board workshop we all attended, which was really productive, and we had high school culinary. They prepared our lunch, and it was lovely. So they are skilled chefs.
Okay, so we'll move on to Becky's report.
Yay. So the dashboard was released in mid-December. I want to say it came out December 9th or 10th. And the dashboard is how the state reports their accountability on us as a district. There were several reports that we had completed throughout the school year with the board that I had to show through our board minutes, that I reported these things to you. So I'm going to show you some of that tonight on the dashboard. All of the pictures in this presentation can be found. If you Google California School Dashboard, you can get right on, and you can pick the district, and from the district you can pick all the schools, or you could actually just choose an individual school and look at that particular school without having to look at everything else. So everything is from there, super easy to find. So we're gonna start off with Redwood. This year, Redwood is a little different because you're going to see that they actually have something for mathematics and language arts. And it's gonna cause people some pause because our Redwood students do not take the CASP test in language arts or mathematics. So those dashboards, the little arrows, the odometers, speedometers, only account for the third graders who took the test who attended Redwood. Okay, so these third grade results look different than the third grade CASP results that you saw from Dana Gray, because the students who did not attend Redwood, make sense, are not included. So these are a bit higher than the Dana Gray third grade scores. This is what Redwood is going to be compared against every year. Only the third grade from Dana Gray, but only the third graders who attended Redwood, okay? So when you jump in and you sign up, you get into the California Dashboard website and you start looking at schools. When you pull up Redwood, you're gonna hit all these little arrows so you can see where they're at. Blue is the best, red is we need some help, yellow is in the middle. If you see something like English language learner progress, it's no performance indicator, is because there's not enough data to compare them from one year to the next. So just right now, Redwood Elementary, there are from this report for last year, there were 400 students enrolled, 78.3% socioeconomically disadvantaged, 37% English learners, and 1% foster youth. So the first one that we looked at, that we will look at tonight for Redwood, is the English language arts score. So if we compare the third graders who attended Redwood 2 years ago to the third graders who attended Redwood last year, the current fourth grade increased in their language arts scores by 18.6 points. So because that increase was more than 5 points, that counts as an increase. So while Dana Gray is at orange, Redwood bumped up to yellow because it was more than a 5-point bump. Okay, so that's why they went up. They're still 13.2 points below standard, but because there was an increase, that arrow went from orange to yellow, okay? And if you see on this particular screen, you see the all students in purple because that's what's selected. If you were to magically say, okay, I'm gonna select the state to compare this to the state, then this is how the state did in English language arts. Now, this is a little, it's a little misleading because it's not third graders for the state. It's how all of the students in the state of California did in language arts combined. So this one is, when we do this presentation, this language arts screen is gonna keep popping up because this is what you see when you hit the state button. You see that there were, on average, it was 3 points below standards, and that as a state, all the kids in the state of California increased by 3.1 points. So it's a maintenance because it's not a 5-point gain, but because they're so close to meeting the standard, that's why it's in the green, okay? So I'll go a little bit faster now just to give you some explanation. So in math, this looks fantastic, right? Go Redwood because the third graders did well in math compared to the other third grade. That's why they're in the green, because there was a 5.4 increase. They're still below standard, but it was an increase because it's more than 5 points. And then this state one will show up again and again. This, as a state, the kids maintained. There was a 2.9 point increase, but they're still significantly below the standard. Okay, so the state is, as a whole, is in the orange, but Redwood is going to get that green bar. The tough part for Redwood is that when they go into, when we go look at the 2020 dashboard, it's going to be all the third graders at Redwood right now who attended Redwood last year will be compared against these kiddos. Okay, and then when the second grade moves into third grade, it continues. Does that make sense? So that's where these scores are coming from. The other thing we look at Redwood is their English learner progress. So it's all being reported this way. There's no real kind of a speedometer reading on this. But what you'll see, what's impressive is that 54.8% of our EL students, and there are 93 EL students at Redwood, are making progress on the LPAC. And when you hit the state, it gives you this little blurb so you can see what it means. The English language learner progress shows the percentage of current EL students making progress towards English language proficiency or maintaining the highest level of the English language proficiency assessments for California, and that's the LPAC. So that'll show up each time. And this is also a little misleading because this English learner progress for the state, regardless of grade level, this is on average every kid in every EL student in the state. So that this is going to show up as we continue to go through this. You can see that in the state of California, we have 844,257 EL learners. Chronic absenteeism. This was a big win for Redwood. Last year, I don't know if anybody remembers, but the chronic absenteeism for Redwood was 19.3%, which meant 1 in 5 kids were absent 18 or more days in a school year. 1 in 5. Well, they took a 7.3% decline. That's a huge decline. That was great. So while they were in the orange, they got to bump up to the yellow. Someone's probably going to say, well, why aren't they in the green? Because the state average for chronically absent students is right at 10%. The state is asking us to get to 4%, no more than 4% of our students chronically absent. We're going to talk about absences in a little bit, but this was a big jump for Redwood. Great job, Redwood Rainbows. Kids are getting to school. And of course, what am I going to say? We need to get more kids to school because 12%, while it's better than 19, it's still saying more than 1 in 10 students, right, are 18 days absent from school or more. And just in the employment world, if you have an employee who's absent 10% or more of the work days, not a huge selling point on keeping your job. So we want to really start looking at continue to focus on attendance as well. Suspension rate. We did have some kiddos suspended at Redwood where the previous year we had none. So because there was an increase, this went from green to orange. And then for the state, the suspension rate is 3.4%. And what that means is suspended at least one time. So if I am a student that was suspended for 2 different occasions, I'm only counted in there once, okay? The state did go down in suspensions overall by a smidgen, but because it's not 5% or more, it doesn't count as a decrease or an increase. It's called a maintained. Okay, moving on to Dana Gray. When you pop up Dana Gray, this is what each of their little, we call them speedometers, radar, arrows. I'm doing this. This is what their dashboard looks like. Dana Gray has an enrollment of 411 students, 78.6 socioeconomically disadvantaged. Notice that our English learners decreased by about 6% because as our kiddos grow and develop into our schools, our English learners should be decreasing because their language skills are improving. And then 1.5% foster youth, which if you did the math, it's about 6 kids. So for English language arts, this is every kiddo at Dana Gray, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. They maintained, even though as a school they moved up, they had a 1.6 point increase. We are still below standard. They maintain at orange. Again, you've seen this one already, but they're being they're compared to the whole state, and the whole state scored better. I will say that Dana Gray is making huge improvements in this area, so I'm really excited to see where we land next year. They're doing some great work. For mathematics, there was an increase again for Dana Gray, 2.4 points. It's an increase, we'll take it. With mathematics, because it wasn't a full 5 points, it stays at a maintenance status, not a decline, not an increase, it's maintained. But you don't see a negative sign on that 2.4, so that is a positive increase. So they remain in orange. They were in orange last year, they remain in orange this year because it's maintained.
Okay, could I ask a question?
Yes.
So if the 3rd grade goes on to the Redwood dashboard, does that mean it's 4 through 6 that
It's-
are on Dana Gray's dashboard?
Great question. Dana Gray gets 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Originally, the state had said that schools like Redwood were going to adopt Dana Gray's dashboard completely, not just 3rd graders, that Dana Gray was going to adopt the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Because you think of a K-5 school, right? In a K-5 school in the city or in other parts of the state, the kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd graders don't take the test, but they build and prepare the kids for that 3rd grade test. So the original talk in the state was that the Redwood dashboard, any K-2 school would fully adopt the elementary school that they are a feeder to. But then what happened was we have too many schools who go to separate feeders, right? We're lucky. All of our Redwood kids go where? Dana Gray. So the compromise, I believe, was that it was just going to be to the 3rd grade for the grade that is the next one. So the hard part for Redwood is that all of their eggs are going to be in one grade level basket, where Dana Gray has the ability to kind of balance that out a little bit. So what we are going to see from Redwood are these hills and valleys. We're going to see much steeper gains and decreases because it's going to be based on that one class rather than looking at an overall span. Does that help? Okay, and then you've seen this before. This is the mathematics one for the state. Okay. EL. So at Dana Gray, we have 119 EL students. Typically, Redwood has had the largest number of EL, but for this particular year, it was at Dana Gray. And the reason for that was we did not reclassify as many students last year because of the LPACs, the transition to the LPAC. So there were actually more students at Dana Gray who were designated EL. The good news is Tina Krenoff just sent a beautiful email with all the students that just got redesignated because they did well on the LPAC. They did what they had to do for their grades. So it's exciting. There's a whole group of kiddos who are being redesignated. And then this is what we saw earlier. Again, I'm just putting it up here so you can see where we are and how we compare with the state if you were to hit that little state button. Okay, chronic absenteeism. Again, this is a great decline. Last year, Dana Gray had 18.5% of their students chronically absent. So almost 1 in 5 kids were absent 18 or more days in a school year. For them to have a 7.1% decline is huge. That is a big, big deal. So our elementary schools are no longer in the high teens. In fact, both of them are not even in the teens. So this is like exciting news here in Fort Bragg. But we really want this below 10%. We want to strive and hit the state standard, which is 4%. And because we are an ADA district, and let me repeat that, because we are a district whose funding is 100% determined by the students who are in seats and attending, this is important for us. So that you've seen this one again. This is the state what the state did. Suspension rate. Dana Gray suspension rate went down just a smidgen. So that's why they maintain in the yellow area. And then the suspension rate for the state. Fort Bragg Middle School, this is their dashboard. Again, there's not enough information for ELs for this year. We will see something for it next year. Middle school, 399 enrolled, 72.2% socioeconomically disadvantaged. Excuse me. Notice our English learners go way down now because we are reclassifying, and 0.5% for foster homeless youth, which would be, well, you can't really do 0.5% of 400, but 1% of 400 is 4, so 0.5% would be 2. So for language arts, the middle school did increase by 2 points. They stay in the orange because of that. They were in the orange the previous year. They did have a boost, but it wasn't 5, so they maintain where they're at. And this is the one from the state again. For math, there was an increase of 9.1 points. They were in the orange for math last year, but because there was a 5-point increase, they moved into the yellow. So that was a nice little perk there and a good reward. This is where the state is at. And then as we get older with our EL learners and more kids are coming out, the kids who remain in are the ones we have to work harder and to do more with. And this again is the state blurb that's on, that you'll see if you go to the dashboard and hit the state button. Chronic absenteeism. So we actually had an increase at the middle school. We had 0.5% more students become chronically absent. I will say that Lura Vieira and the middle school team, the front office team, are the ones who began posting their attendance rates every week, which I thought was pretty informative. So they're hoping that that's going to make a difference. It's been great to walk into the office and see those statistics and know where you stand. So this is something we're going to have to continue addressing at the middle school. Because this was an increase, they remain in the orange, the same as the state. The suspension rate increased by 3.2%. So last year, the suspension rate for Fort Bragg Middle School was under 3.5%. And these are with the number of students who were suspended at least once, the unduplicated suspensions. It's something we're going to have to continue discussing. And discussion is probably the wrong word. We have been talking about implementing restorative practices and doing it well. That's something that I believe we need to put much more on the front burner and really talk about what we can do to change behavior and not be so punitive. So expect more discussions of that sort to start happening. Fort Bragg High School. This year to Fort Bragg High School, what is new is you will see that there is no dashboard for chronic absenteeism. It's off the high school list. Mathematics and language arts are now on, where they weren't on before. You also see a new dashboard here, the graduation rate and the college and career readiness indicator. The college and career readiness indicator is 100% dictated by our high school team, period. No one else has anything to do with that indicator, so we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go further. We have 512 students at Fort Bragg High School, 62.9% socioeconomically disadvantaged. Our English learners decreases a bit from the middle school, 6.1%, and foster youth is 1.2%. What's interesting, if you were keeping up with the statistics, Redwood was at 78% SED, socioeconomically disadvantaged. Dana Gray was at 78% socioeconomically disadvantaged. Middle school went down a little bit to 72, and then we dropped to 62 at the high school. Typically, it's because the high school students haven't reported it. It'll be interesting as we look at this moving forward, because we're now part of the community eligibility program for our nutrition services. We report this a little differently, so I'm hoping that we see a change as we move forward into the year.
And the online enrollment, you filled that, so everybody filled it out versus
So
paper.
I'm hoping that we'll see some change. So the high school is the only dashboard that we have in English language arts or in anything where the students are above the standard, 21 points above the standard. There was an increase of 15.6 points. That's why they're in the green. They exceed the state. So they're in the green. A little bit of lime pie, good stuff. For math, they're struggling like everybody else in math. However, there was an increase of 7.8 points. Because that increase is above 5 points, it moved them into the yellow. And then that's the same one that you've been seeing for the state.
And so that, I mean, it just shows the tool's just a tool, because it looks like if you don't use your explanation that Fort Bragg is in better shape than the state, looking at the dial. So it's kind of confusing for families to be just looking at, it's not a perfect tool, but
No,
it's
the
giving us
tool is to be used to compare the school against themselves.
right.
And so what we look at is we look at what's in that box if we want to compare ourselves to the state. So at Fort Bragg High School, there's 72.7 points below standard, where in the state, it's 33.5 points below standard. And then, of course, the red flags go up. Well, why is it so hard? Well, the high school test, to be honest with you, everybody takes the Algebra 2 test. If you are a junior, you take the Algebra 2 test. If you're a junior in geometry, guess what test you take? The Algebra 2 test. If you are a junior in Algebra 1, guess what you take? The Algebra 2 test. So, and if you are a junior not taking math, guess what you take? The Algebra 2 test. So it's much different. There is a movement right now in the state. We have some legislatures and some lobbyists who are pushing for the high school to be judged on the SAT and the ACT in math, because those are the tests that our juniors take for college entrance, and the movement is for the prepared student to be A to G ready. I don't know if we're ever going to get there. I will tell you I have some personal concerns with that, because that's a test that we pay for through College Board, and I will leave my other opinions about that for a later time, but you can send a self-addressed stamped envelope, and I will give you my opinion. The English learners, we have 31.8% making progress. We have a fewer number of ELs, 22 at the high school. It's the smallest group in the district. And then again, the comparison to the state. For college and career indicator, we've had some great lessons on this indicator. What this shows is that there was a 3.3% decline, and I'm going to give you the story about it. So last year, we had our college and career indicator, and it was at 43.7%. And I called the counseling office, and I said, this is wrong. I know this is wrong. We've got to look at the numbers. The counseling office went through it, and they said, yeah, Becky, it's wrong. We didn't tag our biliteracy diplomas, and none of them counted. Okay? So we fixed it. Jazz hands, we fixed it. So then this year, the numbers came in November, and we were able to look at these numbers prior to the dashboard getting published. The number came out as 40.4%. I again call the high school and say, this is wrong. This is wrong. They call me back. They did it by hand. The counselors and the administration went through every single senior, transcript by transcript, by the state standards. Granted, it was a small class, thank goodness, only 94. And they went through every single senior, and they said, Becky, these numbers are wrong. our dashboard should be at 61.2%, something like that. So we call the state and we say, the dashboard's wrong. It should be 61.2. Here's the error we found. They said, tough bananas. It's not our mistake. It's your mistake. This is the number you get. Okay, so we had it in the preview. We caught it in the preview, but we don't get to fix it in the preview. So we are making some improvements on how we tag things at Fort Bragg High School, because the danger now is we have a decline from this year. If we decline again next year, then we go into differentiated assistance for this dashboard that only the high school controls. So I say that because I'm doing this very publicly with Mrs. Alexander in the audience and all of our viewing people of two, to just kind of let you know that we have fixed those errors. And it was really in marking the classes in Aries appropriately, because there's drop-down menus for every course. And I know you don't want to hear all of this, but I'm telling you this because it's not as easy as it sounds. We have to make sure that every course at Fort Bragg High School is coded appropriately and placed in the right spot, so that when we submit this through CalPads, kids are recorded as prepared, quote unquote prepared, as outlined by the state standards. That is why the high school only controls this dashboard and no one else contributes to it. So we are making the necessary changes, because Jamie could tell you I was not in a very good mood. And not because I was mad at people. I wasn't in a good mood because here was an opportunity for us to highlight the good work that we've been doing at the high school and in our schools all around for this one dashboard. And what it looks like is that we've declined. So this will be fixed. The state is at 44.1% on this. Graduation rate, we have an increase of 2.2%. Typically, if you've watched this in the past, you've seen the graduation rate at Fort Bragg High School always be above 96%. People have asked, well, what happened, Becky? Why are you dipping into the low 90s? Because we have a large population of student who gets a certificate of completion, which is a legitimate, it's a legitimate accomplishment. But I'll give you, for instance, I will talk only about my son. My son is severely handicapped. He is not going to get a diploma. He's nonverbal. Those of you who know little Russell, he's a great little boy, but he is not going to take an algebra class. So when my son goes through the ranks, he will complete a certificate of completion per the goals of his IEP, but he will be counted as a dropout. So that's why the graduation rate is where it's at. We have students in that arena. I don't think it's fair, I'll be really honest with you, to judge a kiddo like my son who can't talk, and he has a feeding tube, and then we're going to call him a dropout. Well, he will survive this, I promise you. But I don't think it's fair to our schools. So that's why the rate is there. But we did have an increase from the previous year. For the state, the graduation rate is in the mid-80s. So we are doing better than the state there. And then the suspension rate increased by 2.5%. I will say that our suspension rates are pretty darn low to begin with, but if you have one significant event that takes out 4 or 5 kids, that's what happens. And we'll just leave it at that. This is the suspension rate for the state. Okay, this year, this is new. Noyo, Lighthouse, and Shelter Cove all have dashboards now. Okay, they weren't going to have them in the past, but they have them now. And if you noticed with Noyo, you see a lot of dark dashboards. Because they have fewer than 10 kids in some of these areas, they do not get data, okay? They have, according to CalPads, when this was all done, they had 20 students there. They're 90% socioeconomically disadvantaged. They don't have any EL learners, and they have no foster youth students. The only dashboard they had was their suspension rate. 13.6% of their students were suspended at least once. Well, if you have 20 kids and you want to figure out what 13.6 means, 10% is 2, 13% would be 3. So that's why it's difficult, because the prior year, they had one person. So there was a big increase, which is why they went to red, and because it's over 10%, which is why they're at red. Is it entirely fair? I don't think so, but I know they're doing great work at Noyo. Unfortunately, this is the only dashboard that they have. And their college and career is 0 prepared. Well, this is another unfair assessment, because when you go into continuation school and you're catching up on your credits, the prepared slot is meeting A to G requirements. Well, there are no classes at Noyo that meet A to G requirements on purpose, because that's the purpose of a continuation school. The CTE courses that we have, they can take CTE courses, but they take them through Fort Bragg High School. And dual enrollment, they've had, if they went through Fort Bragg High School, they've done the college and career dual enrollment, but in order for that to count, they have to take a second dual enrollment, or be A to G eligible, or complete a CTE pathway, or have a seal of biliteracy. So there's lots of things that it's going to be really difficult for a Noyo student to complete, which is why this is at 0. And then the state is at 44. But there's no performance indicator because there was no previous data. Their graduation rate is at 83.3%. What I am going to do a shout out for Noyo is truly they look at kids, meaning if you're a senior and you need an extra semester, guess what they do? They give you an extra semester. If you're a senior and you need an extra year, guess what they do? They give you an extra year. But if you are a senior and do not graduate with your 4-year cohort, you are a dropout. If you graduate the following semester, you're still a dropout. You don't get to go back and report it as a graduate. So in order to be part of the graduation rate, you have to graduate with your 4-year cohort. So if you are a kiddo who traveled abroad for a year, and let's say your birthday, you're super young for your class, and you decide, I'm going to travel abroad for a year, and I'm going to come back and just repeat my junior year, you are going to be counted as a dropout. Not in our eyes, but under this lens, and you still get your diploma. So please don't hear me say don't go abroad, because that's not the case. And this is the graduation rate for the state. So Noyo's doing well. They cater to our kids. They do a great job. And if you don't believe me, you are all at the graduation ceremony every year. It's pretty special. Lighthouse has a dashboard for the first time. They have 22 kids, 86.4 socioeconomically disadvantaged. They have 2 kiddos, if you do the math, English learners and no foster youth. The only dashboard that's going to show up for them is their suspension rate. They actually declined 23% in their suspension rate.
Wow.
Go restorative practices. The numbers are so little, they shift so easily. But that is a direct result of restorative practices. This is the states. You've seen that, I think, 6 times now. Shelter Cove has a dashboard for the first time. Notice there are no performance indicators for them at all, because Shelter Cove has right at 10. And so throughout the year, you have to have 10 of the same students continuously enrolled. And Shelter Cove goes up and down in their enrollment. So the only thing we have for them is the chronic absenteeism rate. And there's nothing compared to the previous year, but 76.9% of their kids are chronically absent. Okay, so 7 out of their 10. And someone's going to say, if you're a mathematician, if you have 10 kids, how do you have 76.9? Because those students shift in and out of Shelter Cove throughout the year. We might have a kid who's there for part of the year and someone transfers in, but their attendance transfers in with them because they're in the district. So that's why it gets a little wonky. And that's the state. And then their suspension rate, it increased by 20%. There's no performance indicator on this. But again, if there's 10 kids there and 37% of them were suspended at least one time, it is a community day school. You can do the math. It's not bad. The state's level. And then as a district, this is the dashboard that you will see for us as a district. The indicators in the bottom, it says standard met, standard met, standard met. Those are the things that I was mandated to report to you throughout the year and within certain timelines. And in order to hit standards met, I had to document at which board meeting and put the link in so that they could see where the board meeting minutes were. So we met all those standards. I did everything we were supposed to do. We had 1,774 students enrolled last year. Now, I want to call particular attention to this, and the reason is the previous year, we had 1,806 students. I want to tell you that when we started last year, I was in Wendy's office pacing back and forth because if you do the math, that's a decline of 32 students. So now the magic question, how come we didn't feel this big impact? Because we got our kids to school. Our ADA, our average daily attendance, has actually stayed right at the same spot. Correct? Right at the same spot. Okay, we get a 3-year rolling average, but it stayed right, almost right around, hovered at the same spot, even with a 32 student decline in enrollment. And why is that? Because we took a 7% decline in chronic absenteeism from Redwood. We took a 7% decline in chronic absenteeism from Dana Gray, and I'm going to show you all the chronic absenteeism numbers in a little bit. But this is what we have to look at as a district. We are 100% dependent on our attendance. And for us to have a decline of 32 kids and for it not to hit our budget with an extreme, massive $300,000 loss is huge. So good job, principals. Good job, moms and dads. Good jobs, teachers. Good job, everybody who got our kiddos to school. So English language arts total as a district, we did increase by 3.8 points as a whole. It was not 5, so we stay, it's in the maintenance, but we did have an increase. There it is for the state. You've seen that now 8 times. Math, we increased again as a district by 5 points, so that moved us out of the orange up to the yellow. Go Lemons. And there's the state. The EL, we had just about half of our kids progressing out of 270. And there's the state. The college and career, this now includes all of the kids from Noyo and Lighthouse, which is why you see a little bit more of a decline where we were at 40% for Fort Bragg High School. As a district, it includes every senior, so we're at 35% there. I expect this to go up next year. And then this is the state. Chronic absenteeism as a district, we had a 4.5% decline overall. That is a big deal to have 4% of our students get out of the chronically absent range. And again, if you're going to do the math, if we have 1,700, let's just say 1,700 kids, 10% would be 170, so 5% would be 85. To have more than 85 kids, probably a little bit more than 90 kids come to school more often and have fewer absent days, I'm thrilled about it. So this is a good thing. The state. And then our graduation rate, this includes our Noyo Lighthouse kids. It's the whole district. We did have an increase of 3.2%. And remember, this is only the kids in the 4-year cohort. And there's the state. Our suspension rate increased, and that's primarily because we saw an increase in all the schools with the exception of Dana Gray. And Lighthouse, excuse me. So we dipped into the orange there. So we were in differentiated assistance for 2 years in a row. When this whole thing started, we got tagged with a big D on our forehead for differentiated assistance for the 2017-18 year and the 18-19 year. MCOE believes that we are out of differentiated assistance because of this year. Now, no one has given me the confirmation letter. I keep getting, Becky, we keep looking at it and we think you're out. And so I'm pushing MCOE because if we're in, I want the money. If we're out, I want to be able to give us some accolades because coming out of differentiated assistance from the state is no small act. So right now, I put the word believes in there because the county cannot confirm that we are in differentiated assistance. So I just want to call attention to the good work that our schools are doing because it is not easy
to get out. So great job. I also want to call attention to this. So this is the chronic absenteeism at a glance from DataQuest, and we're going to look at it for the full 3 years because I think this is hugely important. So when you look at Redwood, 2 years ago when we started this conversation, 1 in 4 kids at Redwood, more than 1 in 4, were absent 18 or more days in a school year. That is frightening. That is frightening, and we wonder why our kids are struggling with reading. Look at what's happened. It's been cut more than half. So that's huge. So the efforts that are happening at Redwood are profound. Great job. When we look at Dana Gray, it went from 16% to 18%, and then boom, great job. Looking at the middle school, it was almost at 17%. We're still hovering in the 16% range, but there are big changes happening at Fort Bragg Middle School. And if you have a chance to walk at Fort Bragg Middle School and just see things happening, I have to tell you, I walked around there on Tuesday, and what a great feel. I mean, the kids are middle school kids. They're still squirrely and happy and fun, but people were smiling. There was good teaching going on in the classrooms. It felt good. The high school has always been the lowest in the district, and they just got dethroned. So Dana Gray now has the lowest rate. The high school being anywhere in the 10s and 11s has been huge. They're the lowest in the county, I believe, still. But you can see the concerted effort that's happened in the area of attendance. Noyo High School, continuation school, they operate on positive attendance, a little bit different. We're still working on attendance there. Lighthouse had a decrease. We'll take it. We will take it. Shelter Cove increased a smidgen. Remember that Noyo Lighthouse and Shelter Cove, those are a continuation and community day schools, so it's a different population, and our kiddos in those schools are doing the absolute best they can. So shout out to them. And then as a district, we declined by almost 2%. So that kind of a decline is a big deal. So I'm thrilled with the progress that we're doing on attendance. If you compare us to the state, we have a 15.3% chronic absenteeism rate. Our county has almost a 20% rate. So we're doing better there. And statewide, I think we're going to hit below the statewide average if we keep up the efforts that we are doing. Where can you find this invigorating, thrilling data? If you Google the California dashboard, that's how you get all the little arrows and the speedometers. You can go to DataQuest on the California Department of Education website. And what's nice about DataQuest is you can filter out all of these great little things and make your data search very specific. And then all public schools have their information reported on DataQuest. What are your questions? Okay. So it's all out there. This PowerPoint without the animations will be a PDF in our board minutes. So if you would like a copy of it, feel free to email me and I will be happy to send you this good stuff.
I just want to say thank you for presenting it that way, because it was good to, as you went through each school and explained why the numbers were and why we were in different colors, it was really helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so moving.
Wait.
Yes, go ahead.
Any further questions or comments? How about anything from the public? Okay, Becky.
Okay, parent resource page. We have lots of exciting things happening in Fort Bragg Unified. And Anna's going to walk us through a little tour. One of the things that we've talked about is compiling a parent resource page on our website so that moms and dads, families, aunts and uncles who want to try and help their kiddos can go to one central location and find some of these great things. So Anna's put this together. These are our links of more things to come. And it kind of helps you see what community resources we have. So we've been compiling this page. We just wanted to give you a heads up that it's there, where it is, so we could show people in case there are questions. what's exciting is that on this page, when we get to the spot, will be our tobacco help resources and some resources regarding help through our new SRO that's going to be coming up later in the agenda, exciting stuff. So know that the parent resource page is there.
Thank you for your work, Anna. Any questions about that? Questions? Public?
You'll need to go to the mic so people can hear you, Amanda, sorry.
I'm Lamanda Walker. I'm a parent to students in the district. And I just want to say that this is going to be very helpful to a lot of parents because I know a lot of parents are like, where do I go for resources? So I think that this is a great idea that's going to be very helpful to a lot of parents.
Thank you, Amanda.
So, just, who do we, if someone has an idea of something to add, do they just contact the district office or? Okay.
And the tricky part with this is we want to try and keep this to nonprofit kind of social services for our kiddos, because we're not trying to promote one person over another. Does that make sense? So it's really resources and social services that are available to our families.
Okay. All right, so we are going to move on to our career and technical education report.
So we asked all of our CTE teachers to just give us a little blurb so you can see what they're doing, how it's going. Through the great work of Jamie Alexander and friends, and I know Mary Makla helped, we were able to renew our Career Technical Education Incentive Grant. The preliminary numbers that were reported show a decline in the funding for us, but the Small Schools Association, Small School District Association lobbied the State Board of Education to pull that back so that the allocations could be reevaluated. But we were approved for this Career Technical Education Incentive Grant for next year, so that's great. We're hoping we get more money than what was originally reported. Regardless, we are getting a nice chunk of change, I don't know if nice chunk of change, but we are getting money to support these programs. And that's what's wonderful about it. So when someone says, well, how can you afford to do this in the culinary class? Or how can you afford to do this in the construction class? Because that's all grant funded. It's not coming out of the general fund. And what I want to remind us is because we are accepting this grant, and because we accepted the original CTE grant, we have to show that even after the grant expires, that we can support these programs for an additional 3 years. So it's a wonderful way to keep these programs up and running. They don't dip into the general fund. We do have a match, but that match is largely from salary and the employment of our folks. And we have a great team. We're pretty lucky. So I know you were all able to read the report. Would you like me, how would you like to go over this? Are you good with it? Do you have questions? Do you want me to go through some highlights? What would you like? It's pretty lengthy.
Yeah.
But great stuff.
Yeah, I'm good with written. That's good. If there's anything you think the public would want to.
Because this is in the packet.
It's in the packet and it will be in the board minutes. Just I can do this. At the middle school, the career technical education classes are culinary class.
Mm-hmm.
That feeds right into our culinary classes at the high school. So we have culinary arts at the high school. The other CTE class is woodshop. What's great about the woodshop class is that we've actually transitioned it to full construction now. The students going through the construction pathway will be ready to go into the workforce and join a team. So that's pretty exciting. They're actually constructing and building things. So that's neat. That's our construction class that we've transitioned from woodshop. We have digital media. Digital media is doing many facets of technology. They're doing, our gentlemen in the back are filming the board meetings. they are doing some computer repair that the kids are actually contracting with privately. Isn't that correct, Nathan? You guys were at the CTE fair, and that's what I saw. So there's computer repair. They are working on getting a soundproof booth. They're hoping to get that through so they can start doing some recording. They have a full website that is completely impressive. If you haven't been to their website, please go and visit it. So we're very excited about digital media and advanced digital media. We have our art classes. Our art classes include not only painting and drawing, there is digital art, there's photography, ceramics. No ceramics this year. It will return. It will return. And then what am I missing? Ag and then ag. How could we miss ag? So our ag department is really thriving. There are many things going on with ag. Megan Tunsley does a great job every year. She is our longstanding ag teacher, which is funny because she's longstanding for us as anything more than 5 years now. But she's doing a great job. The FFA officers participate in local and statewide events. She works with a myriad of students. We have ag bio, ag chemistry. What's the last one? Because the name just changed.
Ag mechanics?
Ag mechanics, but what's the pathway? Is it? It's sustainable. So our agriculture pathway is thriving. The student farm is thriving. There are lots of great things happening in the ag department. So those are our pathways. We wanted to give you an update because the CTE incentive grant came through, and just a shout out to the great job the programs are doing so that we continue to qualify and get that money.
Any questions? Anything from the public?
I just want to, for Jamie Alexander, Assistant Principal, High School. I just want to give a shout out to Megan Tenzie, who is our ag teacher. She actually has two different ag pathways. She does the science-y kind of stuff, and then she does the ag mechanics pathway. So she has two under her supervision. She's doing a terrific job.
Our CTE programs, I'm thrilled with them, and I can't say enough, and I don't want to ramble on. They are out in the public and doing world-to-work industrial jobs that we have been fortunate to be able to have a great staff who is really incorporating that into what they do every day. So, good job.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to the CSEA report, if we have one. No? Okay. How about an FBDTA report?
Hello, I'm Sarah McGee, the president of the Fort Bragg District Teachers Association. And I just have a little bit of a collection of photos from projects and kind of a glimpse into classrooms across the sites. We start off at Redwoods. This is a second grade classroom, and this was from the first English language arts unit, which focuses on government. And in this project, students worked collaboratively to plan a town, and they included buildings for different services, and they were responsible for brainstorming as a group and voting on the town's name and also coming up with laws. So that was kind of interesting. And then this was the hands-on component of the actual building. And so this incorporated, it was a 2-day project, and incorporated social science standards of explaining governmental institutions, and speaking and listening standards, participating in collaborative conversations, building on each other's talk and conversations, and then identifying real-life connections between words. And then we move up to Dana Gray, and this was also during the first unit of ELA. And what's one of the nice things about our English language arts program is that from kindergarten through 5th grade, all the students with the units are in the same theme. So Unit 1 for kindergarten is government all the way up through 5th grade. So if you have siblings that are in, it doesn't matter what grade they're in, they'll have something similar to talk about. And then the content knowledge builds upon itself as we progress. So right now, most classes are in Unit 4 or Unit 5. Unit 4 focuses on character traits, and then Unit 5 is technology. So like 5th grade, it's interesting because 5th grade is not just computers technology, but it focuses on the Industrial Revolution and technology in different ways. So, but this is back to government, and this was another collaborative project in a 4th grade class where students were responsible for representing the 3 branches of government. And they had to read an informational text and summarize the concepts that they found there. And it connects to California also. And I think there was a component about the California Constitution in addition to the US Constitution. Okay, and then we head up to the middle school. So this is in a middle school science class. And this is toward the beginning of the year also. And they had started off with some team building to build up to more collaborative work during the year. And so I believe in this one, they're working to try to draw something on that paper, but without touching the pen. So they're all holding holding the string. So so that was a team building activity to build up to their collaborative work that they do throughout the year. And then this one is in that same science class at the middle school. So 8th grade science collaborative project. And this one, the students were working on building battery chargers that would run on human movement. And so their task was to create an energy device that would charge batteries from human movement. And the real world context was that the devices could be used as battery chargers for rescue workers. So it was a really interesting project for those folks. And this project comes from the adopted curriculum that they have. So. All right. And then here's 8th grade art, an 8th grade art project. And the learning target here was to create a functional sculpture by making a ceramic vessel form. And then this one I just thought was lovely. So this one also, the learning target here, this is also 8th grade art, but the learning target here was to show movement with a sequenced series of images by creating a stop motion, do I say GIF or GIF? GIF? GIF. GIF, thank you. All right. And then we move up to the high school. So this is 10th grade world history, and it was covering the Enlightenment, and this is another collaborative project. And so the students worked in teams, and they were comparing the major ideas of philosophers and their effects on the democratic revolutions in England, the United States, France, and Latin America. So that was the standard. And students needed to create a project or poster. So it was pretty wide open, but it couldn't be a PowerPoint. And they had to have a separate and distinct space for at least 3 Enlightenment figures. And so this is one group's creation, and they have this bookshelf. And the 3, they had to represent the ideas of each philosopher in some way. So that's the first one. And it's interesting how differently they all turned out. So there's 3 different other projects. And then our final one is a cross-site collaboration. So this was just over the last 2 weeks, and this was part of the guided reading training that we had referenced earlier. And so the instructional coaches at Redwood and Dana Gray, I'm the instructional coach at Dana Gray, coordinated with Erin Carter from the Mendocino County Office of Education and with our wonderful high school students to film some model guided reading lessons to use in professional development with our staff. And what's really wonderful about it was is that those videos will be with us for as long as we need them. And so it won't be a single time professional development, but new teachers that are coming in will be able to have them as a resource. So thank you, Nathan. So that's it, just a little glimpse into what's going on in some of our classes.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Sarah.
you.
Thank you.
That's a nice,
Collection,
thank you.
so the public can see, and it's lovely.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to our consent items. So these are non-controversial and routine items. Is there anything that anyone feels needs to be pulled or? Okay. So Diana, would you mind reading them, please?
9.1 warrants dated January 3rd, 2020. 9.2 minutes of the regular board meeting December 12th, 2019. 9.3 personnel action report. And 9.4 Williams reporting, quarter 2.
Okay. And then I ask for a motion.
I move to approve.
I'll se-
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Thank you. So we'll move on to board action items. The first one is our 10.1, our FBDTA negotiation openers.
So we presented this to the board in December. It has to be sunshined, meaning it has to be open for public comment for 30 days before you approve or not approve. So we have exceeded the 30 days. We have on the books right now that our first day of negotiations is in February 6th. And so these are our 3 openers. Are there questions about those?
Has anything come up in the last month for anybody? Okay, any public comment or questions? Okay. All right, so we need to,
And we've had no public input.
No one's contacted me about
Okay.
it. Sarah and I have talked about it.
okay,
Make a motion, we approve the FBDTA negotiation openers, item number 10.1.
I'll second.
all right, any discussion?
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
President Babcock,
Yes.
and Student Rep Angel.
Okay. 10.2 is our CSEA negotiation openers. Similar thing, these were sunshine last month. And now we need to accept them, or not. Any questions or comments?
Nope.
Public? Okay,
I move to approve the CSEA negotiation opener.
I'll second.
any discussion?
President Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Student Rep Angel, and Trustee Schneider.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, my computer doesn't want to let me look at this one. So 10.3, our resolution 20-01 for
So-
tobacco grant.
This is very exciting. So with us in the audience, it is very exciting. We applied for a grant with the Department of Education, and I believe it's Proposition 56. The Department of Justice, we applied for a grant to have a school resource officer in our district to address tobacco education. And we were partially awarded for the grant. Instead of 5 years, they gave us 3 years, but they had to, the DOJ, Department of Justice, had to scale down because there were so many people who applied, but we were approved. So I'd like to introduce to you Officer Oscar Lopez. Would you mind going up to the podium, Officer Lopez? He was our SRO years ago, and I have to just say what a lovely human being Officer Lopez is on so many levels. He is completely bilingual. He's worked with our students and our families. He has a firm but kind, loving heart. He does so much great work in our community, and we are thrilled that he is going to be our SRO. In order to make this all happen, we have to have an MOU with the Department of Justice. You will see in the copy in the board packet that the Chief Lizarraga and Tabitha Miller have already signed on. So it awaits your approval. Officer Lopez, would you like to say anything, or?
Sure, just really quick. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Superintendent Walker and Chief Lizarga for the opportunity of being the SRO again. I'm really excited and looking forward to coming back and being in the schools and being a positive role model for our students. Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We are incredibly excited. Oscar is just, Officer Lopez, I'm sorry. Officer Lopez is the perfect person for this position. So I can't tell you how over the moon we are with it. And just to reiterate, this is grant funded. Not one penny of general fund dollars will be used towards this position. So we're in great shape, and this is a huge win for us, for our community. So questions about the MOU or the position?
So I have two questions.
Yes.
if I may. So can you explain a little bit about what, if you, Officer Lopez, want to do, what the SRO will do?
So, why don't we tag team this one? Do you want to come up? So there are 4 goals that we wrote into the grant. The first goal was for tobacco education for grades 3 through 10. So that Officer Lopez will be looking at grade-specific education around tobacco so that as kids mature through the school district, that education also matures with their age and their grade level. So that's one.
Does that include vaping?
Yes, it includes vaping. Number 2, this is the exciting one. Number 2 is tobacco education for violations. So rather than just saying, okay, you vaped in the school, we're going to suspend you, give you a detention, give you Saturday school, we are going to do tobacco education that we're going to require that students participate with Officer Lopez.
And I met with Ms. Walker, and we're still trying to figure out what day would be a good day if it's going to be like a Saturday school thing, or if we can use Wednesday since it's a minimum day, and just pick a time to see around what time would be best to do that, the restorative or that for
Education.
the education, yes.
So, and the idea behind it is, we know that our students are vaping. We know that this is becoming an epidemic. Well, giving them a suspension or a Saturday school with absolutely no education behind it is not going to make an impact. So what I'm thrilled about is that Officer Lopez brings resources with him. And that really is going to be hugely informative, which segues me to Goal 3. And Goal 3 is really about parent events. If you sit down with Officer Lopez and he shows you his myriad of samples of vaping accoutrement, you will be amazed at what a vape is. It may look like a thumb drive, a memory stick for your computer. Well, it's actually a vape. It may look like a pen. Well, it's actually a vape. There are different products out there. So he has samples to share with parents. What I'm excited about many things, but what I'm excited about again is that Officer Lopez is going to be holding parent information nights. Some will be completely in Spanish, and then others will be completely in English, because if you've been to our nights that go back and forth between Spanish and English, it's exhausting for everybody. And both languages don't feel like the presentation has given that language justice. So we're really going to look at having short and informative parent nights on piggybacked with back to school nights, open houses, with book fairs, things that parents are already coming for, but maybe having a 15-minute section.
Right. I was also thinking of, since Redwood still does Coffee with the Principal, to piggyback in there and speak with the parents that do attend that in the mornings.
So he has great ideas. He even said to me, Becky, I can just show up and be in the hallway with the booth with what the vapes look like, in case you don't know. So that's the third goal of really just parent information nights. We specifically wrote into the grant that it would be Spanish only, English only, so that parents can engage in a very meaningful dialogue with Officer Lopez. So that's the third goal. And the fourth and final goal is that Officer Lopez will be going out into the community doing
compliance checks with local businesses. Yeah.
So the laws have just recently changed. In order to purchase tobacco, you now have to be 21. So he, by the terms of the grant, once a month, he will be doing a compliance check in some random business in our community with someone who is under 21 to see if that person can buy. How exciting! So anyway, we were excited about how that, not that we want to get anyone, we just don't want our kids to be sold tobacco if they're not of age. That is the goal. So we wrote that into the grant as well. There are 4 goals into our grant. Those are the 4 goals. It is a 3-year grant, which is, again, exciting. I will find a new word, which is thrilling. So we are hoping to have Officer Lopez begin on February 3rd if all the paperwork goes through and the finances are released. We've met with the city. They are just as eager to begin this as well. So we're working out the nuances at this point.
So when you go around once a month and take a person to buy, if they violate, will they go into the system the city has? Because June writes
So I'm
letters.
gonna be getting with June to see when ABC and all that is gonna be coming up to do theirs, and I might piggyback with them and then pick their brain on basically how to, because
They do it like, they're supposed to do it twice a year.
right. So per the grant, I'm gonna be doing it once a month. So I'm gonna be picking their brains and see how it is that they run it, and I'm gonna be talking with other police departments that have a similar program, so I can brainstorm and figure out how we're gonna
Because I know
conduct
if
it.
they violate when the county or whoever does it, there's a series of punishments.
Right.
So I guess my question is, and you may not know the answer yet.
Right.
Will the same punishments apply? Will be within the same system?
I believe they will, but I'm not sure as of right now.
Okay. And then the second question is, can you explain the flow of money? Because you're a city employee,
Mhm.
so the grant funds go directly to the city, or do they go through us, or how does that?
Go ahead, Wendy.
The grant funds will come to us, and we will have an MOU with the city that will equal the amount of the grant. And so the city will basically invoice us, and we will pay them.
For your time?
Yes.
Great.
And then also what we wrote into the grant was some secretarial time for Officer Lopez. So if someone needs to get a hold of Officer Lopez, they will be calling his secretary. That position closes tomorrow. So the secretary will maintain his calendar, tell him where to go, where to be.
Yes, ma'am. And so like Superintendent Walker said, we're going to be focusing on that, and then if anything else I can help out with, basically time permitting, I'll be helping out the school as well. Basically, if things come up that I can try to handle, I'll do it.
So right now, we have planned that Officer Lopez will be in our administrative council meeting on February 5th, where that entire meeting will be devoted to the SRO duties and how we coordinate each other as a school system. Just so that everyone has a firm understanding of this is what the perpetual schedule looks like. We're talking about things like he'll do his education in the morning hours, from the hours of 11:30 to possibly 1:30. That's when he's available during lunchtime, when kids are out and about, and he can be available to work with students and families from 1:30 to 3:30. Do a little bit more education, and then after 3:30 again be available for families. So none of this is in stone. We are going to sit down with the administrators and really map out what that perpetual calendar looks like. By that point, we'll know who his secretary will be. The secretary will be in charge, like I said, of not only his calendar, but getting the parent resource website up together, working with Anna on flyers and getting the information out, working with the newspaper, working with the radio stations, making sure that we are doing everything we can to get the information out into the hands of parents and into the hands of students, and then coordinating all the grant activities and documenting those things. So we hope to see Officer Lopez out in like the day in the park, at the PAL activities, at the school activities. I cautioned him when we had our meeting. I said, you know what, we need to be careful because we'll have you at every football game. We'll have you at every, and we just can't do that. So that's why we're going to bring him into ADCO so that we don't completely take away his time from his family.
So is this an hourly position, a salary position? Because, I mean, there's only a finite amount of funding each year, so he can't be going to football games and working 14 hours a day.
No, so this is the tricky part, but very doable. The city bills us for his time. He manages his time. So he's 40 hours. He'll be working with us the 180 days that school is open on an 8-hour-a-day basis. So if we decide, if Officer Lopez says, you know what, Becky, I think Saturday school would be appropriate because I have this many kids on tobacco violations, he might only work till noon on a Friday so that he can do the Saturday school on the following day. Or he might, not work on the Friday and then do an 8-hour activity on the Saturday. But that's up to him and the chief, or the new interim chief, to determine how to flex that out. We get to have the wonderful conversation of what we'd like to see get done. And it's really in partnership. So I'm not his boss, and I don't get to say, you will do this. I get to say, hey, Oscar, let's have a conversation. What do you think? What do you feel would be most effective? He's the person who is the professional and is in the know as far as law enforcement specialties. So that's how it'll work. The city will bill us for the 180 days in the school year for 8 hours of those days, but typically we're looking at a 40-hour week.
And then I know that you'll provide some sort of education for kids that get in trouble, but if a family's having issues with their kids vaping and they didn't get in trouble, you may be available to them.
Yes, and my understanding is if they can reach out and basically get on the books where I can meet with them, basically that would get plugged into the calendar, and then I'd be able to meet with them.
So, and that's why the secretary is hugely important. When we advertised for the secretary, we put down bilingual preferred, and someone bilingual applied. Again, exciting stuff happening in Fort Bragg Unified. So the idea behind the perpetual calendar is that we want to keep time in his calendar that's going to be solely devoted to parent meetings or meeting with community. So those are the things that we'll discuss at ADCO.
Yeah. Well, thanks for putting this together, and we're excited. I know as a parent of 3 teenagers, it's nice to know that the resource like that's out there.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Officer
you.
Lopez.
Thank you.
And thank you to his family. He will not work nights during these 180 days. Well,
I have to tell you
not-
how cute it was. I don't know if anybody else was watching his daughter.
Yes.
How proud of
Yes.
that was the sweetest thing ever. Thank you for having such a wonderful family too. Okay. Any
So-
questions?
Quick question.
Yes.
On the paper, and I think this is correct, it's resolution 20.1, because in the computer version it says resolution 1-20.
Oh, right. What's this, the
It's-
opposite?
It's 20-1,
Right.
right?
Oh, but on the agenda, it's correct. Okay.
And the resolution number second. Good catch. And so, of course, in the memorandum of understanding with the DOJ, they, of course, have to throw in all their boilerplate. If it doesn't, if their budget doesn't meet the standard, that they could take the money away. And of course, we would know way too late. So historically, that's never happened.
well, the good news, this is tobacco money. This is
Right.
the
So
tobacco
it
tax
should be
that
a-
happened. So if the whole state stops smoking, that's a great thing. That is a great, great thing. So one could hope. I think it's pretty safe, though.
Perfect.
Okay, any questions from the public? Okay. So,
Make a motion to adopt resolution 20-01 for the tobacco grant SRO.
okay.
Second?
And any discussion?
Just that we need to reflect that on the
Oh,
top of the
it's
resolution.
wrong there too.
Mhm. So the agenda is correct, and we were consistent on the
Yes, I will
documents.
correct that.
Okay. All right.
Okay. President Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Student Rep Angel?
Yeah.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
And Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We have the washer, 10.4, the washer and dryer installation.
So the Children's Fund came to us a couple of months ago and said, Becky, we've talked to people in the community and we've talked to former graduates from Fort Bragg Unified, and we've asked what are the barriers to getting you to school? What were the barriers for you to be successful or unsuccessful? And we had so many former grads say one of the hardships was that they couldn't necessarily always get their clothes washed. They didn't necessarily have a washer and dryer in their home, couldn't always get to the laundromat. And so Annie Liner, who is the champion of all kids, came and said, we really want to get a washer and dryer, for your alternative education program. So now begins the work. So Barry Silva is our facility maintenance operations transportation manager, and he's in charge of facilities. Began the work of trying to figure out where to put this. So if you are a business out there and you would like to bid on work for Fort Bragg Unified, you have to be
Registered with the Department of Industrial Relations.
DIR certified. Thank you, Wendy. That was lovely. So Fort Bragg Electric is, which is why you see a bid from Fort Bragg Electric on here. We originally looked at putting the washer and dryer in the portable at Alt Ed. That turned into a huge, huge endeavor. It was going to cost so much more than the washer and dryer, and I believe, I think it was over $10,000. Pardon? Okay, so it was a lot. The washer and dryer are not worth $10,192. So we included we'd included the cost estimates here so you could see what we're talking about. And what's difficult here is when you are DIR certified and a job in the district exceeds, I believe, $1,000, we are required to pay prevailing wage, which brings us up significantly. So here we are. Rather than putting it in a portable at Alt Ed, we then decided, let's look at putting this in at the Diedrich Center. And so at the Diedrich Center, we have the teen lounge. It's actually a very ideal space. If I were the queen of all things, eventually at the Diedrich Center, I would love to see that teen lounge transform into a place that is really helpful for teens. I'd love to see that that closet area where we have the estimate to put the washer and dryer, actually have a full shower, so kids can not only get their clothes washed, but actually shower themselves, wash and dry their clothes. They can get a meal through the supper program because we have a full kitchen right there, and it truly becomes this place for teens to get some resources. We're working with Mendocino Coast Clinics. They're going to come in and have some literature for kids, and they're going to start having some groups in there. So big vision for the teen lounge and on wanting to provide more. So as of right now, we have the Children's Fund, who they actually have purchased the washer and dryer. It's waiting, that we need to put it somewhere. The reason why this is on your doorstep is because we need you to approve if you're going to accept this gift or not, because it's not just a gift, right? It's a gift with a price tag. Make sense? And it's an ongoing price tag because now it's electric and water. But I think it's a good use of electricity and water. So that's why this is before you right now.
So how would this work?
So if you say, yes, Becky, this is what we want to do, and it gets approved, then what would happen is we would start figuring out when we could get construction to begin. And what we're talking, there are some little things we need to work out because the washer and dryer would be in the teen lounge. We would get Alt Ed a key, and they would be able to go over during school hours and kind of set it up, right? Hit go, wash your clothes, go back to school. Carla and Connie would be able to walk kids over. I mean, it's right across the street. There's actually a nice little walking path towards there, so we're not worried about that. And then we would monitor use through that. It would be behind closed doors, so we could keep it enclosed from the public. But Annie Liner also said, we've got lots of families who could use this as well. So after school hours, we could open it up to safe passage to use and just monitor the use there, so that the use of it during safe passage hours, it's just monitoring the water and the electricity. So we would have to look at that. And I know that sounds horrible, but we have to be careful on gift of public funds. So that's why it has to be monitored. So we're going to look at it over the next couple of months and see how it goes. And then Annie, again, bless Annie Liner, she said, well, call me after the board meeting and let me know, if this passes. And I said, I'm sure it will. I don't mean to be presumptuous. This is a good thing. But she wanted to have a bigger conversation about the shower. Like, if we're going to do the work to get the vents in and the water in and the electricity in so that a washer and dryer could run effectively, how much would it cost to get the shower in and just do it all at one shot? So I don't know what I'm gonna come with you next, but someday, somewhere, in the not too far future, I really hope to come to you with a plan to get that whole area, to get a shower in. It would be huge for kids.
So it's only for alt ed during the day to use?
It's for any student in the Fort Bragg Unified School District. But it's for alt ed. See, the difference is we have a washer and dryer at the high school. We have a couple of washer and dryers at the high school. We have a washer and dryer at the middle school in the SH classroom. We have a washer and dryer in the SH classroom at Dana Gray, and we have a washer and dryer at Redwood in the autism classroom. So we have washer and dryers at all of our schools. So if a kiddo needs something, we can actually do it. The only school who doesn't have that is alt ed. But spending $10,000 to put in a $2,000 washer and dryer makes no sense. So it makes sense. The next logical place was the teen lounge.
And is there a separate water and power meter where you could be logging that, or is it well water?
I don't,
No.
and it's not well water. It's city water. It's
And it's, the meter's attached to the high school?
it's attached to the JD Center.
Okay. Because just to be able to monitor what's happening. So
We're
that,
gonna have to put a clipboard with a log, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I just think the logistics of getting back and forth are the only negative that I can see.
And we talked about that. At some point, we are going to have to we're going to have to talk about the buildings at Alt Ed. Once we start replacing them, in whichever way we do it, we can look at that replacement being able to house a washer and dryer. It's easier to do a replacement building with specifications rather than trying to address it after the fact. So at some point, when those portable buildings are replaced, I would like to see us replace it with a very specific building that has the proper electricity for a washer and dryer, the proper plumbing for a washer and dryer. Right now, it doesn't have that, which is why the cost was so expensive. They don't have the 220 electric, which was costly, water heater, plumbing. There's, just getting a vent in, all that we're putting in after the fact. So I'm hopeful that at some point we'll be able to move it to alt ed. It's just a matter of when.
Because it's also, just the discretion of bringing a kid across the street holding their bag. I mean,
Well-
and maybe even if there's some way that could,
Well, and I
not
can
to
see,
add to anybody's job description, but if an adult can just bring it over and wash it, dry it, and get it back, so the kid doesn't have to.
oh, I agree.
But
I have to
coming
tell
after
you,
school to the teen lounge would be different, but.
there is a life skill in doing laundry.
right.
As sending my son off to college, that, there is a life skill with laundry. So, but Connie even said, Becky, if there's a lot, we're gonna throw it in the car, we're gonna drive over so that they're not walking in the rain, we're gonna make it work. So, and Annie Liner even said that there's going to be a little money left over so that they can buy laundry detergent. So, and some baskets and things for the kids, so, that's good stuff.
So they're paying for the 3,000, the Fort Bragg Electric work as well?
No,
We're paying for that.
we're paying for that.
And right out of the general fund. There's no other
No.
item. What's the,
This is not out of general fund. Yes, out of general fund? I thought we were doing it out of maintenance. No, general fund. It's one time, though.
Well, but theoretically, the water and electricity is
Will be ongoing.
but that, I mean, I can't imagine that would be more than $200 a month?
It just depends on how much use we
Because it's
have.
a gas or electric
It's
dryer.
electric.
Yeah. And there's only, there's 30 kids that could be potentially using it? I mean, 30
There are
available.
42 kids enrolled in Shelter
42.
Cove, Noyo, and Lighthouse, I believe, right now. I want to say 42.
But most likely 42 kids wouldn't be bringing their laundry on Monday. It's going to be staggered, so it might not be as,
And until we get them in the routine, knowing that it's available, and not all kids need it,
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's
Just
no
available.
different. than at the high school. We have, and at all our sites, not all of our kids need it. And we've worked with some families where we have a couple sets of clothes, and they come in and they change their clothes, and we just start washing until the couple sets are ready to go, so that we just have a rotation of clothes. And it's not, and that's what we do with some families where there's no laundry basket. It's just a rotation of clothes. So we'll see what, whatever the kids need, we'll make it work.
Any other questions? Any comments or questions from the public?
So the LTAD kids wouldn't have access to the Danny Gray washer and dryer.
Well, it's in the severely handicapped classroom. If they needed it, I can guarantee you, if any of our alt-ed kids went to any of our schools and said, we need to wash our clothes, we do it. We do it. Big picture, I will tell you that my goal, my hours, we've talked about this, that having the teen lounge become more encompassing to meet more needs for our students. This is something that I think this is something that we're gonna want.
Could increase ADA.
Get them to school, yes.
And I think it is an extra cost, but I think even though they would travel or drive or however to get over there, it's to come there where it's more private than to walk across and go to a, I think sometimes, unfortunately, they feel like the kind of the stepchildren because they have very broken down portables and they get stuff that's not used at other schools, and they keep getting kind of these the hand-me-downs, yeah. That I think this would be a nice kind of gesture for them to have a space that they could go in.
And I'd like to acknowledge our community, because the Children's Fund didn't have quite all the money for the washer and dryer, and then it was put on Facebook, and then Anna put it on Facebook, and then
about
it
2
lit up.
days, yeah, it was crazy.
So
numbers.
that just speaks to the generous hearts of our community, because this is really for our neediest kids and our neediest families. And I think the Teen Lounge will give them some discretion. And also, it gives them the opportunity that we have a full kitchen there too. If they need to sit down and have a little bit of something to eat. And I'm really gonna push for us at some point to get a shower in there. And
Well, it definitely will improve school culture as well.
Is there a budget?
Well, right now, I'll be very honest with you, I think we need to hold off on that big, on the shower, because I think the shower will be something big. I wanna see what happens in March with our facilities before we start spending more money.
Is there a budget for this?
We did not budget for this. It's going to come out of general fund. It's one-time money, and we didn't plan for it. Can we do it? Yes. Wendy can find, yes, Wendy?
There is some money in district-wide discretionary money that hasn't been allocated to the sites or anything else at the moment.
Well, when you say, now I'm kind of concerned, it's like, well, once they're in there, I mean, with any construction project, it's gonna be cheaper to have them go in there and do 2 things of plumbing versus putting one in and then tearing something out to add an attachment to put the drain in.
So if you approve this, what we can do is, we know that you've approved it, and then we can ask for bids on installing a shower as well, and see what that would do to the price. And I could bring that to you in the April meeting. Give it a couple months for people to get their DIR status. But the April meeting would be after March. It would be after the bond is on the ballot.
And
So-
we're not going to rock the boat with children, and they're not gonna.
I've been very, very honest with Annie Liner.
So she's okay if we're slow moving
Right,
on this?
she said, Becky, she said, waiting 8 weeks makes a whole lot of sense.
I just would like to get the most bang for our buck, so if we can put in both things, for 5,000 versus 3 and then
Another 3.
yeah, or even 5 for both in the next one. I don't know. I'm not a,
Well, then it makes sense to just table it and vote on the whole thing in April.
I'm gonna ask you to vote on this now, because I want the Children's Fund in our community who, donated for this. I don't want anyone to believe for 1 second that we are not accepting this gift. Does that make sense? There was a huge, but it's, you are the board. I can ask you to do whatever and you can say no.
My impression from talking to Barry was that there would not be a significant savings doing them all at the same time, because they're not quite connected enough to make that.
mm.
Because the big deal with the shower is the floor drain. With the washing machine, you run a hose wherever you need to run the hose. With a shower, it's a whole other level of stuff. And running another pipe over from the water heater is the least of it. So I don't think you're gonna see economies of scale by combining these two projects.
And Fort Bragg Electric doesn't do construction anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't think they would
Right.
be putting the drain in.
Right.
If we're gonna look at it as two separate projects, then I think we should, if we choose to approve it, I think we ought to get them up and running as soon as possible. And if there's no major, and I don't disagree, it is probably not a big deal under the circumstances, no big savings most likely. And getting these things up and running is my thought on how it would be.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the washer and dryer installation
At the Dietrich Center.
at the Dietrich Center. Yes, the 3690.
I'll second that,
Any discussion?
with the idea of getting them up and running as soon as possible.
So just separate, we're just dealing with this item.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
President Babcock,
Yes.
Student Rep Angel,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli.
Yes.
Okay.
Just want to make a comment. Thank you to the community for raising money for this washer and dryer. My hesitancy is just using general fund dollars. We're going out to the community for more money. People are asking for raises. You know, it's nice to provide opportunities for people to do their, laundry, and that we do have families in need, but it's prioritizing. It's a concern.
Thank you. Okay, do we want to take a short stretch break and? Yes. Okay. All right, so let's take a 5, can we do 5? Okay, 7:55, please, we'll come back.
didn't really have a mission statement that we could find. We have our core values, and so we've been working on trying to bring all of this together. So we're presenting this to the public. It is the work that the board did at the board workshop for a vision and mission, trying to keep it short, to the point, but capturing our core values and the intent and purpose of our LCAP as well. So the principals are taking this to their staff so that folks can look at it. We're taking it to the parents club, to the site council, so folks can look at it and determine, is this something they can stand behind? Just to let everyone know, you see an adjustment in our LCAP goals. We're not doing a whole lot of adjustments to our LCAP as of right now. We are talking with the sites. We are going to be doing the LCAP roadshow here. But that was a word adjustment. Instead of having closed the achievement gap, we adjusted the wording to be increased student academic success, so that we really are hitting the finer point that all students' academic success increases. So that's why there's some wording changing there, but we really plan to keep our LCAP goals to no major changes. Like I said, we'll be going around to Parents Club, Site Council, staff meetings, leadership meetings, in our administrative council meetings, to have this vetted and discussed thoroughly. So this is just a kind of a first public read on the board agenda.
So I really enjoyed the process so far of developing this, and I have to say that I've been a part of developing a lot of visions and missions, and like to encourage, part of the reason that you develop this is that every decision you make is based on your vision and mission. Does this fulfill what we're trying to accomplish? And I have to say, the reason I voted yes on the last issue is because I read our proposed vision and mission. I said, okay, does a washer and dryer, it's going to take money out of the general fund, support our vision and mission? And it did. So I think that we've done well, and I think the community will agree. So,
Ditto. Thank you.
And just a reminder that our LCAP, one of the reasons, if I'm understanding correctly, is that we can kind of tweak those words, is we are coming up to a 3-year
Yes.
new plan. So
The template was just approved by the State Board of Education. I leave at the end of the month for the Superintendent Symposium. There are a whole slew of LCAP workshops that I plan on attending, because the template is a little bit different. I'm meeting with Kim Kern on February 27th to spend a few hours with her before we go to MIG. So I'm going to meet you there. But I'm in MCOE on the 27th from 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 to work on our specific LCAP and understand the new template so I can bring that back to us. So there's lots of work that's happening between now and June when we meet to have the public hearing and have it ready to go. We'll do, I'll be visiting, like I said, with sites to get their take on if there's any changes that they feel are necessary into our LCAP, and then we'll do a first read of it in May, and then the big deep dive into it in June.
any other comments?
I noticed there was a training that we got invited.
Yeah, free on the 24th
Is
for
that-
LCAP. Same day as our county board workshop or presentation.
Is it the same day?
It's the same
Okay.
day, but it's just like 9 to noon or something in Sacramento. There'd probably be time to get back for a 5 o'clock gig, but,
Ooh.
so it's an option if you were in the Sacramento area on the 24th. You could go in for a 3-hour,
'Cause I was going to ask, is
LCAP.
there budget for us to go to that?
well, that's just the travel,
To Sacramento?
probably just the mileage, because you probably wouldn't.
I don't know if I'd leave at 5 in the morning, but
We talked about that at the last board workshop, and yes, there's budget for that in the board professional development.
okay. I guess my original thought was is that if anyone was interested in coming, but now realizing it's in Sacramento, can't imagine any members of the public,
I wish it was
any
on.
interested parents or families would want to.
Mm.
But with the new format, there'll be opportunities if families are interested to learn about it as it's getting developed?
Yes. The hard part, you know, we have a double-edged sword in our community. When people are disgruntled about something, the masses appear. When there isn't anything really controversial.
Right.
But our LCAP is going to be our driving document. It's what we refer to as our goals are hugely important. And I really appreciate, Scott, what you just said, that when we look at our mission and vision, that's going to be our driving force. When we make decisions, is it addressing that mission and vision? When we make decisions at the district level and when we work with our administrators, I look at our LCAP goals. Is what we're doing improving school culture? Is what we're doing increasing student academic success, closing the achievement gap? You know, is what we're doing preparing kids for college and career? And those are always a driving force. And if we have something that's not meeting one of those, then we shouldn't be doing it. So it's important for us to make sure that these are tight, because this is the next 3-year installment. Someone had asked me and said, hey, Becky, so where are we on our strategic plan and our ESLers and all this? And I said, hey, this LCAP model really is about a 3-year endeavor. You know, we're not making 10-year out strategic plans because we don't even know if we're gonna have the same board in 10 years or the same administration. It's really about looking at our 3-year goals and saying, from here, where do we wanna be? And making realistic, meaningful choices to get us there. So,
Are teachers generally interested in this process?
Scott, I'm worried about your mic being
Oh
so
my
far.
gosh, I'm sorry.
Well, we just got feedback that they can't hear us, so.
Okay, I'm sorry. Are teachers generally interested in this process?
I think teachers are interested in their school plans much more so.
Okay.
But that's all connected, because our
Right.
school plans, the goals for the school plans are the exact LCAP goals, which is why we did that work 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, when we all began together, to get that in line. Because what I saw when I was a principal was everybody had their own goals. Everybody was their own silo and everybody was going in their own direction. So when we came together under this LCAP, it was the time to unify us. So every site has increased college and career. If you vote to change the wording, it's still the same thing about academic success, increase student academic success, and improve school culture. And then the principals will tell you what they're doing in those 3 areas.
Right.
What's great about our meeting next Thursday is that you will get the mid-year review of where they are in their school plans. And someone made the comment to me, Becky, are you gonna give us the mid-year review on the LCAP? Well, I don't need to, because when each site comes up here and says what they are going to do, where they are in the mid-year plan, you can find each one of those activities in our LCAP. Does that make sense? So the mid-year plans are great because you know, you're up here, right? You're on TV. The nice thing about the mid-year plans is that it shows us that these documents are living, breathing documents. We refer to them, we use them, and if they're not happening, then they shouldn't be in the plan. So.
And I think I'm asking partially because all these articles are starting to come out, and it would be good to respond as we go through this process with what we are going to focus on, what our LCAP goals, our vision and mission are, so that if someone reads something that, you know, is true but may not be really true, you know, they know that we have a plan, like, you know, specific plan.
I think what's difficult is when you see Fort Bragg Unified on paper, what you see on paper doesn't express the true story of what we're
Right.
doing in our district.
Which is why when you presented that earlier, it was great, because, yeah, we got the full picture.
So, and please know that my office is always open for anybody who would like a Reader's Digest version of what's going on in the district. Our teachers are working hard. Our staff is addressing the needs of our kids. And yeah, there are going to be bumps in the road. We are far from perfect, and we have a lot of room for growth. What I'm most pleased with is that we really do our best to try and address those areas of growth. We don't ignore it. And I know sometimes we have folks who think we aren't paying attention, and we really are. Oftentimes, growth is slow. And so oftentimes it just takes us a while.
Okay. All right, so again, this will all be shared multiple months and will come back to us, March. Something was supposed to be done in February, but I don't remember. I think that's the handbook and stuff, right? We're doing this in March? So everybody, it can get to all site councils, all?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, so it will be on discussion again next month. If anybody has any comments, please reach out to a board member and/or Superintendent Walker. Okay. All right, so for now, the real fun begins.
Yes, board policies. board
102
policies.
pages of fun.
So you have a packet in front of you, and I would like to do this first just so that we could make sure that I'm not doing this. Oh, you moved it to the other one, didn't I? Didn't you? Do you want to do the other one first? It's up to you.
So how is this different
Let's
from
do
what
the
was
odd
in the,
It's the same thing. So these were the policies that you looked at before, and so these are the policies that, no, this is the
no,
first read of
this is
these.
first read.
This is the first read of these, okay. So we took these policies to the administrators, and we went through them. Super fun. So, but there were some optional paragraphs that we wanted to look at and how it would impact the sites and what it meant. So I'm looking at Board Policy 5141.21, and it's the administering medication and monitoring health conditions. There is an optional policy there.
The auto and, can we ask quick?
Yes.
Okay, the auto injectors that you or your designee will make available, would that just be at the like in the nurse's office, or
Wait, which one?
top of page, just the top of the second page of the packet?
Or the EpiPens.
EpiPens.
Oh, okay. Typically what happens is that we have EpiPens in each of our school health offices.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But like, for instance, my son requires an EpiPen because of his peanut allergy. We keep one in his backpack, but his teaching staff knows where it is. But there's also ones in the nurse's office in case he's walking around school and something happens. And then we do an EpiPen training, I believe, once a year. We just learned that the Mendocino Coast Clinics is going to be helping us administer that training. And if we're doing training for specific children because of IEP needs, and those children attend are patients of the Mendocino Coast Clinics, then we will not be charged for those trainings.
Nice.
So that's exciting.
So this is essentially letting parents administer medical cannabis on-site.
No, option 2.
No,
was
we did option
chosen,
2.
Nix the whole thing.
Which is, yeah, given the state
With
law,
option 2, this is we all do it.
option 2,
So we're going for option 2.
Yes.
prohibit.
Oh, I see, big and green. ADCO agrees. Okay,
There's the
sorry.
conflict between federal and state law.
Right, conflicting state and federal law.
So we are not going to allow it at school.
Parents can take their children, sign them
Off-site.
out, administer it, they can come back. But I think that's a very slippery slope for our administrators.
I would agree.
And,
Yep. Puts you in a really awkward position.
mhm.
Okay, so that was the only thing for that one.
Oh, the Narcan? So the other part of this is Narcan. So Narcan is the opioid,
That's is that the second poem? Yes. Okay, but this first one, okay, but the BP, it's really just that they recommend number 2, option 2. Okay.
yes. And then in the AR, the,
I think it's 2 pages to the back, I think, the second page.
All the way in the back.
the main part on the AR is the Narcan, and it's called many things. I refer to it as Narcan. It's also called naloxone. Pardon, say it again. There you go. You want to say that one more time for our audience? That. People call it Narcan. That's what I refer to it as. So is administering Narcan to people who you believe might be experiencing an overdose. We've talked with Jean Cunnington about this and what this means for us.
Who is that?
Jean Cunnington works with CGAP, and what is Jean's title? Do you know Jean Cunnington's title? Okay, but she works with CGAP, and she works with our kids
That's
on the
the
coast.
gang.
Yes. Thank you.
Gang
So
awareness.
we've done some research on the Narcan, and one of the good things about Narcan is, let's say, for instance, a kiddo's having a seizure, but someone thinks they're having an overdose, and they administer Narcan. It's a nose spray, so there's no injection. And if you falsely or incorrectly administer it because they're not having an opioid overdose, there's no adverse reaction. So it's easy to administer. There is no adverse reactions if you aren't having an opioid overdose. But the benefits of it are, if we do have a kiddo, or a person having an opioid overdose, it can save their life. So we've had a very robust discussion about this in ADCO, because there are many layers of this that make people nervous. And as administrators, you're the ones that are in charge of your site. The reality, what it came down to, is saving lives. Even if we do it wrong, if we have the potential to save a life, we felt that outweighed everything else.
So did they talk about who's going to get the training to administer besides this medical professional?
Really staff, like at Alted, it would probably be every staff member. At the high school, it would be probably the counseling office. At the middle school, it would probably be the front office staff and the counselor, and not only in addition to the administrators. We did not really talk, to be quite honest with you, about training Dana Gray and Redwood, but we also said that we probably should, because it could be adults on campus. It could be visiting people. So we'll probably be doing the front office staff, the administrators, and then depending on what we get for training and who the trainer is, if we can open it up and make it a kind of a day when anybody can pop in and get the training.
And the policy does say that something will be sent out and ask people to volunteer to be trained. I don't think it's one of those things where a staff member will be mandated to be trained.
I was going to say, because don't the unions have to, if we
There
mandate
is a
it?
paragraph that says at least once a year, the superintendent or designate will distribute to all staff a notice requesting volunteers to be trained, blah, 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 blah. So it's not, you are told to do it, you are asked if you want to
Okay.
volunteer.
So we'll start working on that if this is in discussion right now. So next month, it'll go to action. If you approve it as, with these recommendations, then what we'll do is we'll start working with Mendocino Coast Clinics on finding a trainer. And we will send out a letter, an email for all the staff with a date and a time that if they would like to be trained in this particular administration of this drug, then we'll have it open. And what we'll do is we'll try and do a couple at different times and see who we get.
Okay, so I do have an email from Mary, and I was reading that. I'm sorry I wasn't being rude and doing other things, but I was trying to get this so I could kind of take a snapshot and not read the whole thing. So she had an experience that there was a student in her culinary class that had a severe nut allergy, and that she had asked for the EpiPen to be in her classroom in case there was, because they weren't using it in that class period, but she was using it in other class periods, so there could be some cross-contamination, I imagine. And so she received the EpiPen, was given it in a locked file cabinet, but she didn't ever receive any follow-up or training on how to use the pen. So in retrospect, she sees that that could have been a problem. So maybe now that these policies are coming back up, I think her idea is just to have everybody, now that the ADCO's looked at it, to make sure that everybody's trained and maybe for EpiPens and this other thing.
Agreed, and I think the direction we're moving is much better with using Mendocino Coast Clinics. We've relied on the school nurse that we contracted with through Mendocino County Office of Education, and we haven't had a school nurse this whole year. We've had no one in that position at the county, and that's who we rely on. A certificated school nurse is not an RN. It's an RN plus a credential, so it's difficult to find a school nurse. But I think having a good, solid partnership with Mendocino Coast Clinics and having their staff be able to administer that training, what we need to do is we need to just set dates in perpetuity. You know, the second Thursday in August, so that we can have these trainings for administering an EpiPen in Narcan or whatever we decide in perpetuity for the year, that we know it's going to happen in these dates, because staff does roll over. But that's been our issue this year, is that we haven't had that training yet because we are still waiting on the school nurse. But Carolyn Carini reached out to Mendocino Coast Clinics and said, look, we got to get this done. So now we're starting to get that momentum going. Agreed with Mary Makla 100%. We just need to get it out in perpetuity.
There's a page in the packet, and there are no page numbers, but it talks about the laws of Mexico. Is that,
That was in here.
just trying to,
I think it talked about having to accept the doctor's note for
The asthma?
self-administered
Yeah.
medicine. That a physician who is licensed in Mexico but part of the plan that also operates in California.
Okay.
Their note about the student's need for it is acceptable.
Okay, got it.
Because that's probably a common medication that they get
Right.
when they maybe go to Mexico. Is that where it comes from, stems from the law change?
Well, there's different levels of asthma medication here, and our kids are actually okay to administer their own asthma, but I don't know the background of that piece.
I'm sure there was some situation that,
As long, even if they're a physician who's licensed in
Mexico.
that if the service plan operates in California, that we have to accept that
The
doctor's
note.
note.
And it all relates to Ed Code 49423.1 as amended by AB 743, Chapter 101.
We can look it up.
2019.
So I could look it up and get the background.
It's in the paragraph that describes it, if you wanted to look it up.
because 102 pages wasn't enough. You can go get some more. Okay, so now we'll go back to is that the plan? Is the rest of them were as presented? Okay. All right, so any other suggestions besides just going through like we've done before?
We just got optional,
Okay.
this, that, and other
Yep.
thing.
Okay. So did anybody have any questions or comments in 2121?
No. I think we're
About
ahead of that curve because we have been working with legal with the last contract run, so it felt like, yeah, we're doing all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember that I do need to get a physical this year, so I'm working on that. And I know that my timeline is March.
And 3600. This is so in
That
my
one-
realm of,
That was not ever adopted, is that right? This one's never been
Never
adopted?
adopted. Wendy did look at it and could see no issues with it.
gotta love California.
Basically complying with the new law about what constitutes the consultant or contractor.
Okay.
Okay, how about BP 430 or, there is an option in AR.
Mm-hmm. And this was
In the
never
AR.
adopted either.
Okay,
On page
so page
15.
15.
Right.
Sorry, page 15. I'm starting to speak quieter. Okay. So I had a question on whether, could we get a insurance discount if we provided these? I mean, I know that there are the
We don't get a rate hike.
rate hike. We don't get a discount, but we don't get a hike. Okay. Because I mean, I know,
How it
I
works.
think it's important, but I also know that there's been some challenges with getting this done with 100 and whatever employees there are. So if we don't, that sounds bad, if we, but, you know, if it's an optional thing, but if we don't get a price increase, that, to me, that's just as good as a discount. That was my only thought on that one, is to not approve it because it's adding another thing to keep track of and mandate and.
So will Keenan provide something like that, or in that role of items for the
Sexual harassment
training?
training?
That's
Mhm.
we
They
do that
already
one.
do.
Well, but it's not in that whole hour, you know.
No, the administrative one is.
Okay,
The
gotcha.
administrative one is an hour and,
Gotcha. So
no,
that's
it's 2
meeting-
hours. It's 120 minutes, yeah.
Right, so that's meeting that,
Mhm.
because I know my little one I have to do is not an hour.
No, the one, we have to do both. We have to do your little one.
Right,
And then we get to do the one for administrators.
right,
Mm,
okay.
Okay. All right, do you guys have any questions at that end of the table? Okay. How about anything with lactation?
No.
Thought that was exciting that our school has been awarded
Lactation support.
I had a little more challenging when I'm old. It tells you how old I am. When I had my kids. Okay, BP 5116.1. I just underlined the intra part. I mean, this really doesn't apply to us unless we're dealing with, continuing ed kids. I mean, it's,
Mm-hmm.
so anyway, I didn't find anything in that one. Anybody else?
No.
In the BP or the AR? Okay. BP and AR 5117. And I just had a question, do our forms, or will our forms reflect? Because there are,
Yeah, that's why I put that highlight there. I think we need to review that we've got the right information that may be specified both on our forms and on
The website. Mm-hmm.
which is why I put that highlight.
So check website.
And then there's that optional section for use by all districts. We did not have that section in before.
Page 33.
Transfers out of district on page.
yes, 33.
We're in a position right now because Mendocino is a district of choice, and we have the MOU about the number of students who can attend Mendocino. So we're kind of in a very automatic place, to be quite honest with you. Students who we are signing, approving to stay in Mendocino, it's because our MOU is if they've been attending Mendocino Unit MUSD schools, and they're in high school, we've agreed that we are not going to force them to come back to us, that they can stay in that school till they graduate. And we've also said that we aren't going to allow more inter-district transfers into Mendocino Unified until that number comes down to, I think it was 50 kids is what we had. And right now, I think we're at 72, something like that.
Take a while.
So, and then the students who move there, well, that's easy. They move into the district. So, all of this part with these policies, we are more in an automated place than we've ever been because of that MOU with Mendo Unified. So,
Okay. And then AR 5125.
Duplicate.
There's stuff about social media on page 47, which I wasn't really Does that apply to us or not? Sorry, I was talking softly. Did everybody hear me?
Page 47.
Yes, with the social media policy or program.
It's an optional section for districts that have adopted a program pursuant to blah, 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 to gather or maintain information from students' social media activity. Do we do that or not?
I would think that would have had to come to the board, and I don't remember
And
us ever talking about it.
Right, and so how does that work?
Districts that have not adopted such a program should delete the following section.
Right. So if, I mean, I don't think administrators have time to be surfing, looking for this stuff to get someone.
we're not.
So you can't, so.
And typically, so what's happened with us with social media is that the administrators don't go out and look for it. It's typically kids coming to us and saying, this is what happened to
Then
me.
you have to do something.
And then we deal with it, but we haven't gone out on the search for it. So, I would say for now that if it's optional, let's not include it.
And then does that include, some districts have any photos of children, they have them mirrored out, the faces. But do we have a waiver and when we sign in for registration? And that's why we can, any teacher, I guess unless someone totally excludes, they actually sign something different to say, don't take a picture.
It's one of the checkboxes when you do the
That's what I
online
thought.
registration, so that teachers can pull a list of the kids that have opted not to be included in photographs or have been.
So if they don't click that box,
Yeah,
then,
now because it's
it's-
all done electronically, they can just run a report.
gotcha.
Which was a big problem in the past because it was all bits of paper.
It was all, exactly, it was just slips. Okay.
Okay, so everybody's okay with us pulling that social media section?
Social media hunting.
Okay, so then we have the BP and AR for bullying, 5131.2. I didn't have any comments. Did anybody else?
No.
Okay. Becky, holler if you have any, or
Nope.
Anna, okay.
I just want to say that for some reason the AR was never adopted by Fort Bragg Unified. It's a recent AR and it must have slipped through the cracks somehow, but there it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have the BP and AR, which we've gone over for the medications. Anybody else have any questions or concerns about that? Okay. All right, the BP and AR for course of study.
What page are you on?
Something like 91.
I only wrote down the pages of optional stuff, so
That's 91.
74. Okay, I have a couple things on this, just.
Courses of study.
So I'm assuming that all of this is, since it's so new, that it is all California Common Core State, anyway.
Standards,
yeah,
yes.
it's all aligned to that. These are all included.
Yes, all of our recent adoptions are all CCSS.
But I mean, this board policy reflects that too, because there's some things in here that say that there's a few that are shall, but there are some that say shall include, and then there's some that say shall offered. But for example, it's saying that for first and through sixth grade, they're gonna have first aid, CPR, and fire prevention. And I know whatever grade goes to fire prevention day, but it's saying that we're gonna teach first aid and CPR to grades 1, I don't know, some of this stuff seems kind of,
I don't think that it's interpreted that way. I think that we teach first aid and we teach about first aid and CPR. We don't get kids CPR
Certified.
trained and certified.
Well, no, I understand, but, I mean, frankly, where do you fit that in when we're having trouble fitting in science?
Yeah, it's part of the health curriculum.
Okay, is it happening?
I would have to ask Mr. Kale and Ms. Erickson.
Because
I
I
know
feel
that
nervous
I'm-
about putting it in policy, because then if somebody
So
comes in.
tell me what page you're on.
That one I didn't write.
77. I think
And then, for example, on 78, it says for health, it's, oh no, that's not the one about, because there's also one about consumer,
Public personnel, including instruction and first aid.
consumer ed, and that says shall include. I mean, that's telling. And that there's driver's ed mentioned in here, and I thought, does assets count for that? I don't know. This stuff's, I mean, what they were saying you had to provide was making me a little nervous.
So my understanding, and I can get these questions answered, is that all of this is not done in every grade 1 through 6. It's done at least one time when they're in the grades 1 through 6. But let me check on that.
Okay, but yeah, it's multiple things, because, you know,
'Cause
like I
you've
said,
got
then
fire-
we move on to, there's specific social studies requirements. Now as humanities, now that those blocks are starting to happen, is that,
They follow, so 6th grade is the,
because it's very specific, early California,
Yes.
you know.
no, they follow the standards completely, to the grade level standards
I
with the humanities.
Okay, I'm worried that these aren't talking to the state.
So the reason I believe this is coming out is because the social studies framework was just adopted. So this does align with it.
Okay, and then the driver's ed thing? I mean, we provide it during assets, but this says that consumer education and driver's ed is going to be offered. It shall include, I even made, because there's another place that says, okay, the consumer ed is on page 80, and then,
You mean consumer sciences?
yes.
They've added consumer sciences as a replacement word or words for the words homemaking. So no longer are you a homemaker, you are a
Right, but
expert in consumer
we
science.
used to have a, you know, a
Home ec.
business math class and a consumer economics class,
It
but
says
that's
at the
all
very
gone.
top, though, that is one of the things that has been changed, is the substitution of consumer sciences for homemaking.
Well, I understand the substitution, but what I'm saying, I read it as, this is what we're, shall include, there it is right there, course of study for 712, it's on the bottom of page 77, shall include, and then it has these things. I'm just, the shall, and if we're gonna adopt it, I feel like we either need to do it or change it, and can we change it? And, you know, all these topics, what is listed in the state standards?
Courses of study for grades 7 through 12, graduation requirements shall include.
I mean, most of them are pretty.
Basic.
Right, but then we get into this stuff about driver's ed. Let me find the driver's ed again. It's gotta be down here in the, well, there's career and technical education. There's the first aid again, and CPR, fire prevention. Dang it, where's the, oh, your 7 and 8 include this.
So high school
Oh,
shall
vehicle,
provide
there.
field driver
There it is,
education
yeah.
that includes instruction in.
Right, on page 82. Again, I'm not trying to nitpick, I just,
No, that's a good eye.
I mean, some parents could come in and say, well, your policy says you're supposed to provide my kid driver's ed.
Doesn't actually talk about driving.
Right, but
Just
we
talks
don't
about
provide,
teaching them.
right, but we don't
provide it.
provide anything.
We provided
When
an
this, here we
assets.
go with dating myself again. When I went to high school here, there was both, in the car and and then now we provide through assets the book portion of it, but still not the driving.
It does actually say offer and not provide.
Well, and it's not for all, I mean,
So you could
unfortunately.
offer them a book from B and B maybe.
Well,
Well,
and
okay, as
assets
long as-
does have an option, I mean, if you.
Well, that's
if
why I
your
said, does
birthday
assets count? That's what I,
Yeah,
but the other one says shall include. The one, but anyway,
yeah.
as long as you guys are comfortable with it, that was my
Your
question.
input, yeah.
I have something on, what's on page? Okay, we've already covered I'm overanalyzing. It's okay. We can go on.
I'm looking at the,
Anybody else have questions on 6143?
I thought there was options at the end of the AR, but I don't see it now.
Yeah, there
91
two
or something?
options on page 81. Number 12 is optional, and that is violence awareness and prevention. And number 13 is optional, and that is ethnic studies.
Did you say 91?
What page are you on?
I'm page 81.
81. Oh. I was getting this. 81, okay.
Oh, because I have it from the other order.
80, I don't see oh, it's on 80, okay.
Yeah.
Or the page numbers don't change, okay. I don't know if I would want to lock us into any more
Right.
mandated things.
Especially the violence
I would say on the
awareness.
optional ones, we just remove them for right now. I think
Yeah.
it's something that we need to consider moving forward on how we do that. You know, if it can be part of, if it can be part of a course. We do offer it through the college class. We've offered like women's studies and Native American studies through the college class. So maybe that's something we can ask the college to do. We've offered those, thank you, good job. We've offered those courses through the college class, and maybe that's something that we can continue to offer. It's just hard to fit it all in, and when we have such a limited master schedule, it just makes it tough.
Well, I would think that some of this stuff would be through would have to be through advisory I mean, you couldn't offer a whole class.
health,
There's
yeah.
no way you're gonna fit that in the schedule. But, okay, so on page 81, we're out for number 12 and 13.
Mhm.
I like 12, but I understand. Sorry, I like 12, but I understand.
And maybe that'll come with Officer Lopez.
Mm-hmm.
And Mary Iverson does a lot with that in freshman seminar.
Okay, homework and makeup work. 6154. I really was interested in this read as having some children moving from middle school to high school. There's been a real shift in, so I think this does follow what our district is doing. And now that this has been talked about at ADCO, I would just encourage it to be discussed at the teacher level as well. And the one thing I've seen as my children are going through, when some friends of ours started middle school, it was pretty heavy homework load. Then there was a big discussion to get rid of that, and it went away. Now my children didn't have very much homework, but then trying to make that transition to high school, it's been a challenge to not only navigate the school and all the things that are going on with moving to the high school, but also, and it might just be because Jacob has some learning disabilities, but the change in the homework load and just navigating that whole thing has been, so if there's maybe another discussion to maybe bridge that a little bit better, that there is some homework and accountability in middle school.
There is. I was in a 7th grade math class today and watched the homework come in, watched the homework get assigned out. And I think what at least I'm seeing at the middle school is the math department is assigning specific homework. Other departments are assigning homework as things are getting done or not getting done in class. Science is a little bit different because their labs are really class specific. So it's hard to do that, take that outside, but I can definitely speak with Mrs. Vieira and Mr. Chimolino and just get a flavor for what departments and grade levels are doing, and what their expectations are. But
I think it's a conversation between the sites. Like,
Oh,
it's
I
not,
see. Okay.
yeah, it's, and again, it might just be my son's challenge. But from talking, anyway, it's, anyway,
I get it.
it's not all about my kid, but, it's, well, it was coming from, they're sophomores now. That group had a lot of homework in middle school, and then it shifted greatly.
And the grading shifted too, and I think that might have gone, I don't know if it was hand in hand, in the sense that it was more about not creating that stress at home doing the homework, but that you're going to try to succeed on the standards or the learning that was going on with, like, for math, for instance, and going to that 1 through 5 grading. And so maybe that kind of is why it kind of backed off, because this system is more about having to, anyway.
Well,
But it's a transition.
Okay, I added that to my list.
But there were no options here.
and this directly affects teachers, so if just might be a nice reminder. Anything for 6174? Oh, I wrote a note that reading the one about the, for the English learners and what I know that they come and they do their report, but the way this read to me was a little more, instead of giving an update, it was more, the policy was more directive. They were giving more, and I thought maybe should a board member specifically, like, be on a subcommittee or something and be, I mean, I know we try to go to, I know that you and Mary have been really good about trying to go to DLAC meetings, but,
Mary's been good at it.
okay. Did anybody read it that way, that they're giving more direction than just an update on what's happened? I don't know. I read it. And I didn't know whether we might want to be part of that process more, and, no? I was reading it late at night, so I
think our
Well, I think we always have, there's a district person who's part of that, who I think collects that information from the group, because that group is not shy about sharing what they'd like to see changed. So and I know that we've received information from whoever the district person is as part of that group back to express the interests of the group, DLAC. So I think we're fulfilling that in that way.
And then the site councils, a lot of them have, I don't know if it joined together is right, but that they have someone coming to the site council, so I think there's this community, but you were more talking about district involvement with a board member?
Yeah, because it says that shall advise the board on at least the following, and it seemed, like I said, I know they come
The once a
annually and they
year.
give us a wonderful report about what they do recommend and what, I don't know, I thought this was more, this list seemed more directive, when I thought we would be more from coming this instead of, I don't know. It's fine, I'll go with it.
Well, have they reviewed this?
ADCO's reviewed this.
ADCO, okay.
And we should, I'm thinking about this because of the federal program monitoring this year. It might not be a bad idea to remind the DLACs about this list of things that they sort of have a responsibility for. That, and to empower them to speak up about some of them too. So that they know what their role is. I've never been in an organizational meeting of one of them, so I don't know if this is explained to them.
What
They're
what they're signing on for.
Yeah.
It is. So there's, at the first DLAC meeting this year I had attended, there is a kind of a PowerPoint that was prepared by SCO that Tina went through with the whole group in Spanish to talk about the roles and responsibilities in electing officers, and then they went through our EL master plan, and that all happened in a second meeting. They had gone over it completely in Spanish, and then at the next one they had approved it, so, and then we attend DLAC, because we use DLAC as the LCAP Advisory Committee for English learners. And I go to DLAC every year to report on the LCAP and gather input prior to the public hearing and prior to even our first read.
Okay, anything? AR 6175 for the migrant ed program. Any notes, questions?
No.
Okay, and then the last one, the B, I think that should be B, right? Not BB, it's
It was
BB?
board,
Board bylaws, okay. 9150,
And there
our
were-
student board member.
I have 98 and,
He's 99, there's some
Yeah.
optional stuff.
Who knew? Student board members may, at the board's discretion.
Get mileage. I just thought, I kind of chuckled at that. Oh, it was
they
about
can
the
get an
elective,
credit,
yeah.
which is interesting. Has that ever,
Never been brought up, but it would fall along the lines of 15 hours equaling 1 credit.
like, community service? Or more, how would you,
I don't know.
that would encourage, maybe.
In my
Well, this is
recollection, the
elective- this is
kids
elective
don't need
course.
electives
Elective course
that
credits, yeah,
that
that's
do
true.
this job. But it would look good on their transcript, I mean, versus just being on their letter of recommend, or their resume. There's another CBIT, or another course code to have to deal with.
Yay. It's exciting, board bylaw.
Well, then it says, this is weird, it says the board members must be chosen, student board members, by the school, students enrolled in district high schools,
And that's the way, it's all
Mhm.
in the,
kind of in that.
in their bylaws too.
So the only thing I'm bringing back to ADCO in all of these right now is just discussing the homework and grading standards for the middle school and high school.
No, that sounds like I'm off base, so don't bring it up.
I don't think it's a bad discussion to have.
Well, just
I'll bring it up
delete.
with ADCO and see where we go with it.
And then the course of studies, I guess that we kind of,
Oh, yeah, but again, that was my interpretation, and no one else seemed to see that that was read, that those things are mandated, so don't add people's people's
Well,
workload.
if Assets is doing that, then it's offered.
Right, I was
So-
just wondering if
But the
assets
other-
did count, because if we didn't have the assets program, then it wouldn't be there.
Then we would have to offer it some other way. But
Gotcha.
it is offered through the Assets program.
mm-hmm.
Well, that's fine.
So a process question with the student rep, because they're rotating and we don't really have an official student rep, should we really be letting them vote?
Probably not.
But they're not voting, it's detailed in here, it's not a vote that counts anything. It's a preferential vote, which means expression of opinion, but no official, it doesn't affect
Make-
numerical
Well, I
outcome.
just, then if, I'm fine with that as long as at the beginning of each meeting, when we have a new person, we accept them as the student board member for the night. Like, it just seems like we should either formalize the process a little more, or they're just here to observe. I'm just reading this policy. They should be getting the information that's the same time as us,
Mhm.
should be invited to our retreats and whatever.
Well, I think for right now, because we're just rotating through to get student involvement, I think they are observers right now and
Okay.
not necessarily student board reps, because they have to be voted in. So for right now, I appreciate having students here because
Absolutely.
I think we need to do that.
Mhm.
when we move into the spring and they have ASB elections, then I'm hoping that someone will run for that position, and then we will treat that position as the student board rep as outlined in the bylaws.
That's
Okay.
always on their ballot.
It's always on the ballot. No
Okay.
one ran this time.
Okay, that's good to know. I didn't realize it was formally.
It's on the ballot every year. So before, so Judah was voted in every year in a formal ASB election. Before Judah, it was Taylor, and Taylor was voted in did she serve 2 years or 3?
I
I think two, because I was 1 year with her.
2 years.
She was here. she was
Okay,
at
and
least
then before Taylor, I don't even remember who it was before Taylor. Someone will say any.
Was it Jose?
It was, okay, Jose Guyana, and then, I mean,
Then you're going back pretty
yeah,
far.
going back pretty far, I don't know.
I could actually probably pull it up on my jump drive, but, because it's in my SB ballots, but, that'd be my tenure.
But good point.
Well, we definitely will
But
have
the
it on the agenda, so I will not botch that up again.
Well, I almost emailed, I'm like, oh, we'll just do it in the meeting.
And
I just thought it was a report, so we could add it,
I
but.
think it's nice
I
if they sit up
understand.
here and they're apart, but.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
But I think
makes sense.
duly noted, they are observers and not.
Okay, so I will go ahead and reach out to Katrina and say, in case Angel goes back and reports that you're gonna be voting and this, that, and the other thing, and just say, we kind of botched this up. They will be observers, they will provide a report.
And they can input.
Mm-hmm.
Totally, yeah.
And then any topic that, we'll ask for input, but no voting. No.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns regarding student board members? Anna, I believe you were gonna make a comment about future,
I'm just thinking that to encourage students to actually want to run, maybe the elective issue should be pushed out there a bit more, elective credits, just to put some students out of the woodwork that might want to do that. Credits.
so I think we would need, maybe it wouldn't need to be put in here, but the whole thing about 15 hours, do we want to do that? And if so, do you think that should be included, or just leave it like this and then that has to be discussed with the counselors and the admin? Just leave it at that?
Yes.
Okay, so then take it off your list.
You don't
'Cause-
need to discuss.
Well, if we leave it there, oh, you mean to ask them if it's okay?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
how that would work and how.
Well, they know, it's very cut and dry how elective credits are given. But I was thinking we should put it in here so it's in black and white here, but,
And should be, like you said, reminded to the students that they could receive credits.
it is definitely more of a time commitment than the other ASB. Because they participate in all of the ASB meetings and activities plus this, versus the other kids just are doing the activities. So it's a lot, and especially if they're coming to workshops and stuff, which they couldn't have come to the last one because it was during school time, but Saturdays. That's like Saturday school. Okay, so any other questions? And then I just had a note to make sure that the health, but it sounds like that's gonna happen already, but that the health aides take a look at these two now that they're
Mhm.
getting next time after they're approved. So that all the people know that because I think I didn't realize there was a homework policy when I was a staff member. Well, I knew you had to give them homework. We were told that, but
They didn't read the policy.
yeah, I never read the policy. But it might have been something interesting. Okay, so we have done the two information and discussion, and then we're on to other advanced planning for suggestions. Anna has now put together our official list. It was in front of you this evening, as well as sending out the email Google invites for the two specials, one in March and one in May. So please make sure you accept those and get those on your calendar. One is a Tuesday, so let's make sure those get settled. Any other suggestions at this time for topics or other meetings?
So will the 23rd be videoed? Do we normally, probably just the budget and LCAP planning one?
I'm not sure if the 23rd is going to be videoed or not. I'm kind of feeling that our students could use
A
a
break.
break. But we'll see. But I do want to add 2 dates on to here. On February 5th, the Friends of Mendocino College Coast Campus is having a dine out at the McCallum House. Proceeds are going to adopt to 5th grader scholarships and high school scholarships to attend Mendocino College. And then on February 8th, the Timberwolf Boosters are having their Almost Spring Affair. So that's another benefit for students.
Anything else? Okay. All right, so our next meeting is next Thursday, and then that's a special meeting, and then we will also have our regular meeting on February 13th. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
A second?
Thank you very much, students, for being here with us again this evening.
Our techies.